Chapter 797. The cave was very long and winding. After going more than 1,000 feet deep, Xiaoling Yu suddenly frowned. He stopped and reminded, there should be a powerful monster ahead. I'll go take a look first. As Linger spoke, her body had already disappeared in a flash. Sister Linger's ability is too powerful. Meiling praised sincerely. At first, Meiling didn't understand why Xiaoling Yu would bring Linger, who was only at the second firmament of longevity stage, along. Now, he naturally understood. Even he felt that if they wanted to successfully complete this mission, they would have to rely on Linger. However, Xiaoling Yu and Meiling were uncertain and worried about whether Linger could become invisible in front of a sea monster at the Nirvana Soul stage. Not long after, a powerful aura surged out from the depths of the cave, followed by the roar of a monster. Oh no, it's a Nirvana realm monster. Meiling's expression changed drastically when he felt the powerful aura. Retreat. Xiaoling Yu made a prompt decision and retreated out of the cave at full speed. As for Linger, who was still in the depths of the cave, Xiaoling Yu and Meiling didn't have to worry too much. After exiting the cave, Xiaoling Yu immediately made a hand seal and chanted an incantation. In just 10 breaths, a monster with an extremely long body like a crocodile pounced out of the cave. Linger's body immediately appeared 1,000 feet away from the entrance of the cave. The crocodile monster charged straight out. Its body was as black as a steel plate, and it shot towards Linger like an iron arrow. However, Linger disappeared in the next moment, causing the crocodile monster to miss. Xiaoling Yu activated the 8-sided Nirvana fire sealing formation at this moment. Rolling flames surged like a tide and instantly filled the entire island. However, all of its power was concentrated on the crocodile demonic beast. Linger quickly returned to Xiaoling Yu's side and quietly looked at the crocodile demon beast in the sea of fire. The crocodile demon beast was indeed in existence at the rebirth realm, and the defensive strength of its scales wasn't weak at all. Even if it was incinerated by strands of rebirth flames, it didn't show any signs of being injured on the spot. Instead, it was constantly moving about madly within the formation while ceaselessly spitting out its own rebirth flames to attack in all directions. It was obvious that it didn't have a deep understanding of array Dao. Its attacks were chaotic and didn't have much impact on the 8-sided Nirvana flame sealing array. Under the siege of the rebirth flames, it was unable to find the path to return to the cave, nor was it able to charge out, and it gradually became irritable as it repeatedly emitted waves of furious roars. However, its irritation and furious roars were of no use. It persisted for the time it took to brew a cup of tea before the hard scales on its body began to melt and dense black smoke began to rise from its body. After another 10 minutes, the crocodile demon beast's body was finally completely melted under the burning of various true Nirvana flames. The strange thing was that even though its body was gradually melting, it actually persisted until the end. Even though its body had completely disappeared, it was actually still alive. However, only a strangely shaped heart was left behind. The heart's shape was strange, yet it seemed to be crystal clear. It was like a large shining gem. So it's at the Nirvana heart realm. Its life pearl is wrapped in its heart. Meiling's eyes flickered as he said, the heart of a Nirvana heart realm demonic beast is an extremely good material for refining pills. Even if it's not used for refining pills, it's still very beneficial to directly consume it. It would be a pity to burn it and destroy it. Xiaoling Yu didn't reply. Instead, he continued to maintain the formation's might and incinerate the demon beast's heart. Only when the heart showed signs of melting did he stop the formation. Then, he walked over to the heart, formed a seal, and put it into a jade box. From the energy fluctuations of this heart, it should be of the moon attribute. A moon attribute life pearl of the Nirvana heart realm is 10 times more valuable than a yang attribute one. Meiling said with a little excitement. There shouldn't be any other powerful sea beasts on the island. If there were, such a big movement would have alarmed them long ago. Xiaoling Yu's expression was indifferent. After speaking, he led Meiling and Linger back into the cave. For the sake of safety, Linger hid himself and led the way in front. Xiaoling Yu and Meiling followed behind slowly. Indeed, they didn't encounter any more demonic beasts. Everyone walked for nearly 10,000 feet without any hindrance and arrived at the belly of the mountain. The belly of the mountain was empty, and there were hard and cold stone walls on all sides. To everyone's surprise, there were countless sparkling rocks on the stone wall. Waves of incomparably pure moon attribute energy were surging within the belly of the mountain. No wonder there is a moon attribute nirvana realm demonic beast here. It turns out there are so many moon crystals, Myling said in amazement. Moon crystals were energy crystals like yang crystals. However, yang crystals were very common and easy to obtain in the world of immortals. Moon crystals were very rare, just like how yang attribute demonic beasts were very easy to find, but moon attribute demonic beasts were very difficult to find. A moon attribute life pearl could be exchanged for 10 yang attribute life pearls of the same grade. Moreover, a cultivator had to be willing to exchange for it. The value of a moon crystal was 10 times that of a yang crystal. Moon crystals are difficult to form. Why are there so many of them gathered together? Myling was very suspicious. Why do you care so much? Let's hurry up and collect all these moon crystals. Xiaoling Yu was more straightforward. He didn't think too much and immediately flew into the belly of the mountain. Then, he used the life-affirming dagger to pry out the moon crystals on one of the stone walls. Myling and Ling also followed closely behind and started to get busy. The stone walls of the belly of the mountain were at least 10,000 feet high. They should extend deep into the ground. The moon crystals on the stone walls were densely packed and innumerable. Moreover, they had to be removed piece by piece. Of course, it was not something that could be done in a short period of time. Unknowingly, the sky of the Lost Islands gradually darkened. The 9 blazing suns hanging high in the sky were replaced by 9 silver disc-shaped moons. The strange thing was that as the moon crystals continued to disappear, the entire belly of the mountain should be getting darker and darker. However, when night came, it became brighter and brighter. The deeper they looked into the belly of the mountain, the brighter it became. Xiaoling Yu and the other 2 were somewhat puzzled. They temporarily stopped digging out the moon crystals and descended into the depths of the mountain. I feel that there is an incomparably pure moon attribute energy gathering in the belly of the mountain from all directions, Myling said as he descended. When he was still 1,000 feet away from the bottom of the mountain, Xiaoling Yu saw that on the ground at the bottom of the mountain where rocks were piled up, there was a strange pattern that was covered by the rocks. It was slowly flowing, and there was an obvious aura of a spirit array that was overflowing from it. Xiaoling Yu didn't land on the ground. He only released his divine sense and moved the rocks away. Then, he saw a formation engraved on the ground. After looking at it for a while, Xiaoling Yu said with narrowed eyes, "The reason why so many moon crystals can be gathered here is most likely related to this formation. This formation is definitely not formed naturally. It should have been set up by a powerhouse. It is probably used to create moon crystals," Myling said with a nod. Xiaoling Yu muttered to himself for a while. Then, he began to study it. Myling and Ling continued to dig out moon crystals from the stone walls. It took nearly a month for all the moon crystals on the stone walls of the mountain to be dug out. After a quick calculation, they realized that they had obtained nearly 200,000 moon crystals this time. This was undoubtedly a windfall for all of them, who weren't rich at all. If they sold 200,000 moon crystals, it wouldn't be a problem to exchange them for 2 million yang crystals. If they were in urgent need of moon crystals and were rich, they could sell them for at least 500,000 yang crystals. Myling was very happy. He couldn't hide the excitement on his face. Ling, on the other hand, was still as indifferent as ever. Xiaoling Yu was still studying the array diagram on the ground. Even though his cultivation in array Dao was not bad, he could only barely remember the patterns of the array diagram and the way the patterns flowed. He could not grasp the gist of it and could not comprehend it. Actually, you don't need to study it thoroughly. You can just take away the formation and the stone slabs on the ground, Myling suggested. We can try. Xiaoling Yu then did as he was told. However, to his and Myling's disappointment, just as he used the life-severing dagger to pry up the ground, the formation that had been there for an unknown number of years and hadn't been taken care of by a cultivator for an unknown number of years suddenly collapsed into nothingness. The moon attribute energy that had gathered in the mountains seemed to have lost control. It crazily rushed out of the cave and overflowed from the small island. "If I don't, I'll be doomed." Xiaoling Yu didn't care too much. He then left the mountain and the cave with Myling and Ling. Then, he put away the 8-faced Nirvana flame sealing formation on the small island. This was only the edge of the Lost Trace Islands. Under normal circumstances, they wouldn't encounter Nirvana realm sea beasts. Therefore, after a short rest, the three of them continued to advance into the depths of the Lost Trace Islands. Of course, as they advanced, they naturally had to use the 8-faced Nirvana flame sealing formation to obtain more life pearls from sea beasts. Even if they couldn't complete the task given by the Lord Steward, at least this trip wasn't in vain. At most, they could return most of what they obtained to the Lord Steward. However, since they had been entrusted with this task, it would be best if they could hunt a Nirvana Soul Stage Moon Attribute Sea Beast. There were many Nirvana Realm Sea Beasts in the Lost Trace Islands. The last time they came, Uncle Tuo seemed to have deliberately avoided those powerful sea beasts. However, this time, Xiaoling Yu and the other two didn't know much about the Lost Trace Islands. Due to their lack of experience, they often encountered Nirvana Realm Sea Beasts. However, those Nirvana Realm Sea Beasts were basically in the Nirvana Realm or the Nirvana Heart Realm. After falling into the 8-faced Nirvana Flame Sealing formation, they could only obediently hand over their life pearls. In fact, the reason why those large clans and forces could be so powerful and their disciples could progress so quickly was because they could often go out to sea like Xiaoling Yu and the other two. They would either use a large number of experts or use special formations and methods to wantonly hunt sea beasts after going out to sea. With enough life pearls from sea beasts, they would have enough yang crystals. Their disciples wouldn't lack the capital to cultivate and improve. Chapter 798. Xiaoling Yu's group of 3 weren't Nirvana Realm cultivators, but they had to hunt Nirvana Soul Realm Moon Attribute Sea Beasts. Even with the help of the 8-sided Nirvana Flame Sealing formation, it was still a bit difficult for them. They didn't dare to wander through the Lost Trace Islands recklessly, so they could only slowly advance into the depths of the islands. Every time they advanced a certain distance, the 3 of them would stop and find a small island to set up the 8-sided Nirvana Flame Sealing formation. Then Linger would go out to search for their targets. While searching for their targets, Linger relied on his powerful perception of energy fluctuations to find a lot of places with hidden treasures. These treasures were either collected in caves left behind by past cultivators or natural treasures formed by the heavens and earth. In any case, they had a bountiful harvest each time. When Linger found a place with hidden treasures and took all the treasures, Myling felt like he was dreaming. Not to mention when he was poor, even now, Myling's wealth was very ordinary. To be able to obtain so many life jewels and treasures in such a short period of time was something he could only dream of. He never thought that the scene in his dream would really appear in reality. He couldn't help but secretly rejoice that he had introduced Xiaoling Yu to the Awakened God Pavilion. Xiaoling Yu narrowed his eyes and said, "It looks like there were a lot of cultivators who settled down in the Lost Trace Islands to cultivate." Myling nodded and said, "It should be. Otherwise, where did all these caves come from? In that case, this bewildering maze sea shouldn't be like this in the past. It's just that there were some unforeseen events that caused this place to gradually become like today." Myling replied, "That's about right." Xiaoling Yu speculated, "There shouldn't be any problems on the surface of the Lost Trace Islands. The key to the problem should be in the depths of the sea or even at the bottom of the sea." Myling smiled and said, This should be something those powerful cultivators consider. We don't have to worry about it. This is beyond our ability." Xiaoling Yu looked at Myling and said with a smile, "If you don't consider the things that experts consider, I'm afraid you'll fall into mediocrity for the rest of your life, and you won't be able to obtain great opportunities. As the saying goes, riches and honor come from danger. If one continued to silently cultivate like cultivators of the same level and painstakingly accumulate experience, not only would the time taken to cultivate be countless times longer, it might not be truly safe. The longer he cultivated, the more problems he would encounter. Who knew when he would be killed because he had angered an expert? In any realm, which expert relied on the accumulation of years and months of cultivation to reach the peak? Which expert didn't once experience things that ordinary cultivators didn't dare to experience when they were weak? Which expert didn't rely on great opportunities to reach the peak? Myling wrinkled his brows. After muttering to himself for a long time, he said, "That seems to be the case. The world of immortals is a multitude of living things, and there are countless immortal realm cultivators. Logically speaking, everyone doesn't have to worry about their lifespan. With endless lifespan, the number of cultivators in the world of immortals should be increasing. But take that gourd island for example. After countless years, the number of cultivators on that island hasn't increased by much. It seems like there have always been that many cultivators." Shaolin Yu followed and said, "If the number of cultivators continues to accumulate without decreasing, the world of immortals will definitely lose its balance. One immortal realm cultivator might not occupy a lot of resources, but countless immortal realm cultivators will definitely consume a lot of resources every day. If this kind of continuous consumption without replenishment continues for a long time, even a realm like the world of immortals will collapse sooner or later. This is not allowed by the natural laws of heaven and earth. Therefore, the natural laws of heaven and earth will definitely eliminate a portion of the cultivators, or it can be said that a portion of them will be imperceptibly wiped out. The majority of this portion should be the weak ones, and a portion should be the strong ones. This should be a portion of the natural laws of heaven and earth. The fool thinks that when you reach the immortal realm, you can truly live forever. In reality, it's just a joke to think that you can live as long as heaven and earth when you reach the immortal realm. Only by constantly climbing up to the peak of strength can you have the possibility of being immortal and indestructible. Being unknown and honest won't last long. You still have to worry about being bullied by the strong. Rather than that, it's better to risk your life and make yourself a strong person." Brother Xiao is still the one who sees things clearly. Myling seemed to have a feeling of seeing the sun after the clouds parted. His laughter actually became a bit more open-minded. Soon after, Myling's heart suddenly moved. Then, he sat down cross-legged. He sat down for close to 20 years. Myling actually didn't move at all in the same place, as if he had entered a mysterious state because of Shaolin Yu's few words. 20 years later, Myling slowly opened his eyes. When he looked at Shaolin Yu again, there was a bit more gratitude and admiration. "Congratulations brother me for successfully advancing to the 8th celestial layer." Shaolin Yu cupped his fist and congratulated. "I still have to thank brother Xiao for your guidance." Myling also cupped his fist and bowed. Then, he said, "This time, I've reached the 8th celestial layer. When I go back and supplement my cultivation with my life jewel, my cultivation will naturally break through. Understanding the natural laws of heaven and earth, just a little bit more is enough for us immortal realm cultivators to greatly improve. It's really incomparably mysterious and profound. Ordinary immortal realm cultivators would first cultivate to the peak of their realm and then supplement their life jewels with demonic beasts that were one level higher than them to seek a breakthrough. This time, Myling unexpectedly obtained an epiphany and raised his soul realm by a level. If it was in the past, Myling would definitely be happy for a long time after obtaining an unexpected breakthrough. However, after listening to Shaolin Yu's words, his entire person was filled with fighting spirit, and there was a bit more ambition and dissatisfaction. During these years when Myling was raising his realm, Shaolin Yu and Linger had to be by his side to guard him. Naturally, they didn't have any gains in terms of life jewels or treasures. However, although his wealth didn't continue to expand, his gains in other aspects were still not small. First of all, in terms of cultivation, because he could absorb the life jewels of demonic beasts below the Nirvana realm without limit and absorb their energy and comprehension, Shaolin Yu's realm was already not inferior to a 9th celestial layer cultivator. He could be considered to have reached the late 10th revolution chaotic creation realm. After all, he had previously obtained thousands of life jewels of demonic beasts above the 6th celestial layer. Just the life jewels of demonic beasts above the 9th celestial layer were absorbed by Shaolin Yu. It was reasonable for him to be able to obtain such an improvement. Those demonic beasts' life jewels condense the demonic beast's essence. Ordinary cultivators who absorbed demonic beasts' life jewels would not only improve their realm, but also their cultivation. However, the energy in those life jewels couldn't improve Shaolin Yu's chaos origin force at all. Shaolin Yu could only use it on his body to improve the quality of his body and enrich his life essence. The improvement of his realm was only one aspect. Apart from that, Shaolin Yu also made another important discovery. Once when he paused his cultivation, he placed a piece of yang crystal and a piece of moon crystal in his hand to study. First, he calcined them with the primal chaos true fire, then corroded them with the chaos origin force, and finally added some special formations, which actually made him very surprised. The energy overflowing from the yang crystal and the moon crystal, which had been refined by many methods, could actually gradually fuse and form a very pure chaos origin force. This discovery made Shaolin Yu wild with joy, because it solved the problem of Shaolin Yu being unable to quickly improve his cultivation. Shaolin Yu finally studied it carefully and gradually understood. The yang crystal was clearly pure yang energy, while the moon crystal was actually yin energy. If the energy formed by the fusion of yin and yang wasn't chaos origin force, then what was it? It was just that this chaos origin force was actually chaos origin force, which made Shaolin Yu a little surprised. After studying it in depth, he figured out the reason. When Shaolin Yu was in the lower realm, when he wanted to create chaos origin force, he had to use his own chaos god force to fuse with the heaven and earth's mighty force. However, the immortal realm's yang crystal and moon crystal originally contained the heaven and earth's mighty force, so when they fused together, they could directly create chaos origin force. After all, the immortal realm was a higher realm than the immortal realm. The energy crystals here were naturally more special and of higher quality than those in the immortal realm. Shaolin Yu could also be considered to have understood another point, which was why the immortal realm's cultivators needed to rely on the yang crystal and moon crystal's life jewels that were one level higher than their own. It was because the yin and yang energy worked together to help the cultivators balance their state and realm, thus allowing them to advance steadily. However, the amount of chaos origin force that a yang crystal and a moon crystal could produce was too little. Adding on the fact that there wasn't much time, Shaolin Yu couldn't create too much chaos origin force, so his cultivation didn't increase by much. They had stayed on this small island for too long. After Myling woke up and familiarized himself with the immortal realm's 8th celestial layer, everyone continued to advance into the depths of the bewildering maze sea. Although there wasn't much time, Shaolin Yu was still very patient and continued to advance at a neither fast nor slow pace. Linger still acted as the vanguard. She found a lot of hidden treasures and the treasures inside were plundered. In the blink of an eye, another 30 years had passed. Everyone still hadn't found a Nirvana Soul Realm sea beast. However, Shaolin Yu and Myling's shift had come to an end. After hesitating for a long time, everyone still decided to go back first. Before they came, the Lord Manager had told them that they only had 100 years. If they didn't meet any targets or things that couldn't be done, everyone should quickly return. According to the method taught by the Lord Manager, everyone really easily left the bewildering maze sea. Then, they drove the blue boat at full speed towards Gourd Island. The blue boat's speed couldn't compare to the Yun and Sang family ships. It took them nearly 15 years to reach the shore of Gourd Island. Putting away the boat, everyone took a detour and entered the city from the north gate of Gourd Island. The Yun family didn't know that Shaolin Yu had left the city. Naturally, they didn't think that Shaolin Yu would return from overseas. Therefore, Shaolin Yu and the other two entered the city very smoothly. They quickly arrived at the residence in the north of the city. The residence didn't change much. Miao Ying and Shaolin Yu's wives and friends had been cultivating in their own rooms. In the years that Shaolin Yu went out to sea, the Yun family didn't try to attack the residence. However, the Lord Manager came to visit a few times. Chapter 799. On the third floor of the Awakening God Pavilion, inside the manager's room. Xiaoling Yu and Mei Ling silently stood before the manager's desk, quietly observing the pale-faced manager. Compared to 100 years ago, the steward seemed to have aged a little. Even though he was sitting calmly, his hands, which were placed on the desk, were trembling slightly. Xiaoling Yu and Mei Ling both frowned slightly. The manager gave them the feeling of a hero past his prime. It seemed like the manager was really in a precarious situation and was on the verge of death. His injuries must be very serious. If it wasn't for his injuries being too serious, he wouldn't have given the 8-sided Nirvana flame sealing formation to others, nor would he have let 2 cultivators who hadn't reached the Nirvana realm help him hunt a Nirvana soul stage moon attribute sea beast. He had no other choice. The 2 cultivators he had placed high hopes on had returned from the sea. Although they had gained a lot, they hadn't completed the most important task. I'm really gratified that you've gained so much from this trip. However, I believe you can see that I can't hold on for much longer. The manager's voice trembled a bit. An injury that could make a Nirvana realm cultivator's lips tremble while speaking was definitely fatal. Sir, is there no other way? The bewildering maze sea is too vast and dangerous. We can't go on a rampage there. Even if we try our best, it will be difficult to find a Nirvana soul stage moon attribute sea beast, Mei Ling explained with difficulty. We need a Nirvana soul stage moon attribute fate pearl, but it doesn't have to be a sea beast. Other sea beasts are fine too. The manager pondered for a moment and said, right now, we can only go inland and buy one in a large city. If we go to the bewildering maze sea, even if we can find a Nirvana soul stage moon attribute sea beast, I'm afraid it will be too late. If you can buy it with yang crystals, that would be even better, Mei Ling replied. However, a Nirvana soul realm yang fate pearl would require at least 2 million yang crystals to buy. A moon fate pearl would cost 10 times more than a yang fate pearl. Therefore, it would require more than 20 million yang crystals to buy a Nirvana soul realm moon fate pearl. However, I only have 8 million yang crystals here. The difference is too great. The steward smiled bitterly. The gap is really too big. Mei Ling felt a little helpless. If it weren't for the fact that I didn't have enough yang crystals to buy them, why would I let you go to the bewildering sea to take the risk? Manager said with a gloomy face. During our trip to the Mystic Maze Sea, we obtained 200,000 moon crystals, which can be exchanged for more than 2 million yang crystals. The life jewels of other Nirvana realm and Immortality realm experts can also be exchanged for more than 2 million yang crystals. In total, we have nearly 13 million yang crystals. Xiaoling Yu interjected. Even so, we are still short by 7 million yang crystals. Moreover, 20 million yang crystals is a conservative estimate. The steward frowned. I can sell my house. It should be able to sell for 3 million yang crystals now, Mei Ling said very righteously. If you sell the house, where will you live? The steward asked. Mei Ling looked at Xiaoling Yu and seemed to be asking for advice. The house used to be almost empty, but now Xiaoling Yu's wives and friends all lived in it. Mei Ling couldn't insist on selling it. Can you spare one of the rooms on the 3rd floor? Xiaoling Yu thought for a moment and asked. Of course, but it might be a little crowded. The steward replied. It doesn't matter if it's a little crowded, as long as we can settle down. Xiaoling Yu didn't care. At this moment of life and death, I have the help of the 2 of you. If I can survive this disaster, I will not let you down. The Lord Steward, who had always been indifferent, now looked a little touched. He stood up and bowed sincerely. Sir, you are too polite. Sir, you treat me like a teacher. It is natural for me to do my best for you. Mei Ling politely returned the bow. Xiaoling Yu also returned the bow and said, so, we are only short by 4 million yang crystals. The steward hesitated for a long time before he said with a difficult expression, if I sell my 8-faced Nirvana fire sealing array flags, I can sell them for at least 8 million yang crystals. But if I sell them, it will be a pity. Right now, saving our lives is more important. If we lose the yang crystals and magic weapons, we can get them later. If we lose our lives, there is no way to get them back. Myling said. But these flags are the reward I promised you before. The steward looked at Xiaolingyu again. He could see that Xiaolingyu liked the 8-faced Nirvana fire sealing array flags. Sir, you must be joking. Not to mention that we didn't complete the mission this time. Even if we did, if you need us, we won't really care about the reward. Xiaolingyu also said generously. Xiaolingyu had never been a generous person, but it also depended on who he was treating. Xiaolingyu would never be stingy with the cultivators who were generous to him and helped him. A real man had to do something and not do something. This was the principle. After all, Gourd City is not really a big city. The treasures won't sell at a high price here. You can take them out and sell them in a big city inland. While speaking, the steward put his yang crystals and flags in a storage bag and handed it to Xiaolingyu. After the plan was set, Xiaolingyu, Myling, and the steward went out of the Awakening God Tower together and brought Xiaolingyu's wives and friends to the 3rd floor of the Awakening God Tower. It was extremely difficult to buy a house in the city, but it was very easy to sell a house. In less than 3 days, Myling's house was sold to another cultivator for 3 million yang crystals. Myling was prepared to find a time to break through to the 8th heaven of longevity when he came back, but he could only put this matter aside for the time being. Xiaolingyu originally planned to let Myling stay in the Awakening God Tower and go to the big city inland alone, but after thinking about it, he gave up this suggestion. He was afraid that the steward would misunderstand. If he went alone and ran away, wouldn't the steward and Myling lose a lot? Of course, if Xiaolingyu wanted to run away, even if Myling followed him, he wouldn't be able to stop him. Xiaolingyu also knew that the steward understood Myling's temperament very well, so he trusted Myling very much. On the other hand, the steward might not trust him, but his wives and friends were still in the Gourd City, so the steward didn't have to worry about him running away. It was also because of this that the steward entrusted such a big matter to him. After settling his wives and friends in a suite on the 3rd floor of the Awakening God Tower, Xiaolingyu, Myling, and Ling entered the transmission formation together. After the formation trembled for a while, it suddenly flashed with a silver-white radiance and sent Xiaolingyu and the others out of the Gourd City. Fortunately, the direction of the formation's transmission could be controlled. After a moment of dizziness, Xiaolingyu and the others were already far away from the Gourd Island and were in a barren mountain. This barren mountain should be the inner part of the Immortals' mainland. This was also the first time Xiaolingyu set foot on the Immortals' mainland. Without wasting any time, the 3 of them flew up high together. They first determined the direction, then headed deeper into the inner part of the mainland. After flying for less than 10 days, a big city appeared in front of everyone's eyes. From afar, the clouds and mist curled around it presented a grand silhouette. Floating Cloud City, an important town in the southwest region of the Immortals' mainland. Not only was it the closest big city to the Gourd Bay, it was also the largest city in the southwest region of the Immortals' mainland. It was said that there were no less than 10 million cultivators residing in the city. Floating Cloud City was built at the edge of a big mountain range. It was built by a powerful cultivator who flattened several thousand enormous mountain peaks. Then, the flattened mountainside was used to build buildings and streets. Therefore, the terrain was extremely high. Looking from afar, the floating cloud city that was several thousand feet above the ground was shrouded in clouds and mist. It looked as if it was lifted up by the clouds and mist and didn't touch the ground. Floating Cloud City also had another name, and that was the City in the Sky. Moreover, everyone preferred to call Floating Cloud City as the City in the Sky. With such a high terrain, naturally, it didn't have any city walls. However, the surroundings of Floating Cloud City were set up with layers upon layers of powerful formations and restrictions. One after another, terrifying lightning and fire continuously wandered within the clouds and mist. It caused people to be intimidated at first sight. They didn't dare to rashly take even half a step into the lightning pool. Because it was built on top of a mountain range, the Floating Cloud City was divided into districts based on the name of each mountain peak. The districts were connected by bridges that stretched across the sky like rainbows. If one were to look at Floating Cloud City from afar at night, it would truly be a magnificent sight. It would cause people to be fascinated. Myling had made a trip to Floating Cloud City in the past. Therefore, the three of them wouldn't be unable to find the city gate. The so-called city gate was actually a flight of stairs that led to the mountainside of a large mountain. No matter which cultivator it was, once they arrived here, they would have to land at the foot of the mountain and then climb up the stairs. At the end of the stone steps, there was a rather large plaza. And on the side of the plaza facing the stone steps, there was a restriction light door. The restriction light door was like a ripple of water, allowing cultivators to pass through without being stopped. On both sides of the restriction light door, there were 2 rows of soldiers wearing bright armor and holding swords at their waists. They were all longevity 9th heavenly layer cultivators. Moreover, at the position closest to the restriction light door, there were 2 masters whose true cultivation Shaolin Yu couldn't see through. It was estimated that they were most likely Nirvana Realm Masters. To let longevity 9th heavenly layer and Nirvana Realm Masters guard the city gate, it was likely that only a large city like Floating Cloud City could afford to do so. To enter Floating Cloud City, one had to pay an entrance fee, and the fee was calculated on a daily basis. One had to pay 3 yang crystals for a day and night. If one didn't come out on time, they would be severely punished. When they arrived in front of the restriction light door, they paid 400 yang crystals in exchange for 3 ordinary-looking jade tokens. Only then did Shaolin Yu's group pass through the restriction light door. 400 yang crystals was only enough for the 3 of them to stay in Floating Cloud City for more than a month. If they didn't come out on time, the jade tokens on their bodies would shatter and turn into a red mist that shrouded them. The patrolling soldiers in the city would then chase after them. Chapter 800. Shaolin Yu shook his head and said, "Brother me, there's no need to go through so much trouble. During our trip to the Lost Islands, we obtained many treasures in addition to the sea beast's life pearls. If we sell these things, we won't have to sell the moon crystals and the 8-faced Nirvana flame sealing array." Previously, in front of the manager, Shaolin Yu and Myling didn't mention that they found many treasures in the Lost Islands. Now that the manager wasn't by their side, they naturally didn't have to worry too much. "That's fine." Myling nodded and said, "Then let's go to Dragon Head Peak first." It took them nearly a day to reach Dragon Head Peak, then they wandered around Dragon Head Peak for another 5 days before the 3 of them went to Danxiang Peak. The Danxiang Peak had countless stores that sold pills and elixirs. At the same time, there were also many stores that bought various grades of herbs and life pearls. Being in the Danxiang Peak, one could clearly smell the fragrance of pills and elixirs, giving one a comfortable feeling. Danxiang Peak was also one of the most prosperous and lively districts in Floating Cloud City. After all, pills were essential consumables for cultivators. Injuries required medicinal pills to heal, and cultivation also required various special medicinal pills to increase the success rate. Needless to say, there were many medicinal pills with special effects that would cause cultivators to scramble like a flock of ducks. There were many shops that sold various grades of life pearls, but after going through more than 10 shops, they didn't find a single Nirvana Soul Stage Moon Attribute life pearl. After wandering around Danxiang Peak for a full 10 days, the 3 of them finally found a shop that sold Nirvana Soul Stage Moon Attribute life pearls. However, the shopkeeper of the shop offered a high price of 26 million yang crystals. During the 5 days on Dragon Head Peak, Shaolin Yu sold a lot of magic treasures and cultivation methods that he, his wife and friends didn't need. He also sold a lot of precious herbs and various grades of sea beasts' life pearls at Danxiang Peak. In addition to the preparations before coming to Floating Cloud City, he only had a total of 22 million yang crystals. "Shopkeeper, do you have any Nirvana Soul Stage Moon Attribute life pearls here?" Just as Shaolin Yu and the other 2 were hesitating, a cultivator had appeared at the counter of the shop at some unknown time. He stood still and asked straightforwardly, "I have one." The white-haired old shopkeeper nodded. "I'll take it. How many yang crystals?" The newcomer was very straightforward. 26 million yang crystals, the old shopkeeper replied. The person did not try to bargain. He immediately tossed a storage pouch onto the counter and said, "I'm in a hurry. Give me the life pearl." The old shopkeeper didn't touch the storage bag. Instead, he pointed at Xiaoling Yu and said, "I'm sorry, but this fellow Taoist is also interested in this life pearl. He'll come first. If he pays, then this life pearl will belong to him. If he doesn't want it, then I'll sell it to you. Fellow Taoist, do you want it?" The person asked Xiaoling Yu. "Yes." Xiaoling Yu replied firmly. "I can see that fellow Taoist hasn't reached the nirvana realm, so you don't need this life pearl. Why don't we make a deal? I'll give fellow Taoist 1 million yang crystals, and fellow Taoist can let go of it." The newcomer proposed to Xiaoling Yu with a very sincere look. "All right." Without waiting for Xiaoling Yu to speak, Miling, who was next to him, agreed. Earning 1 million yang crystals without spending any effort. Such a good thing was not easy to come by. Although a Nirvana Soul Realm Moon Attribute Life Pearl was difficult to find, it could definitely be found in Floating Cloud City. Moreover, the price of this shop was too high. The three of them couldn't take out so many yang crystals in such a short time, so Miling agreed without hesitation. The newcomer didn't dawdle. He immediately took out another storage pouch and stuffed it into Xiaoling Yu's hand. Xiaoling Yu was very suspicious because he never believed that a pie would fall from the sky. Although his luck had always been good, it wasn't good to this extent. "Eh?" The newcomer suddenly exclaimed strangely, then pointed at the jade box containing a Nirvana Soul Realm Moon Attribute Life Pearl and said, "This life pearl has been preserved for too long. The quality is too poor. I don't want it anymore." As soon as he finished speaking, the newcomer put away the storage pouch he had thrown on the counter, then reached out to Xiaoling Yu and said, "I'll give you this life pearl. The deal is not done. Return my 1 million yang crystals to me." Xiaoling Yu wasn't someone who liked to take advantage of others, so he immediately returned the storage pouch in his hand to the newcomer. Unexpectedly, after the newcomer took the storage pouch, he frowned and said angrily, "Why are there only 200,000 yang crystals left?" At this moment, Xiaoling Yu had already guessed that this guy was here to blackmail him. He couldn't help but sneer and said, "You should know very well how many yang crystals there were originally in this pouch. It's better if you don't show off your tricks. We're not 3-year-old children. You say I'm trying to trick you? When you took the storage pouch just now, why didn't you say that there were less than 1 million yang crystals in it? Now you've taken away 800,000 yang crystals and you're still saying I'm trying to trick you? How preposterous!" The newcomer said with conviction. Just now, Xiaoling Yu had indeed glanced inside the storage pouch and found that there were indeed mountains of yang crystals inside, so he didn't say anything. He also didn't really count how many yang crystals there were inside. "I didn't touch a single one of your yang crystals. It's better if you don't make trouble here." Xiaoling Yu's expression didn't change. "You said you didn't touch it, so you didn't touch it. If you didn't touch it, did the yang crystals inside disappear by themselves?" The newcomer questioned. At this moment, Miling also realized that the newcomer was clearly trying to blackmail him and couldn't help but regret his decision just now. After all, Miling was a cultivator who climbed up step by step from the bottom and hadn't climbed too high. A cultivator like him only wanted to live a stable life and didn't want to cause trouble. When he encountered trouble, it was inevitable that he would be a little timid, so he said to Xiaoling Yu, "Forget it, give him 800,000 yang crystals." It was better to avoid trouble. After all, he didn't lack 800,000 yang crystals at the moment. Hearing Miling's words, the cultivator's eyes suddenly lit up, showing a bit of expectation. What a joke! The more easily we compromise, the more we will indulge the arrogance of such a treacherous villain. Xiaoling Yu's face suddenly darkened, and he angrily scolded the cultivator who looked as thin as a monkey. "Under the bright sky and in the vast city, Your Excellency is a dignified 7 feet tall man. How could you do such a thing? You really wasted many years of hard work to reach your current level." After all, he was once an expert whose might had shaken the world. He was even said to be the ruler of the world when he was on the heavenly Saint Island in the divine realm. He was invincible. When Xiaoling Yu was angry, he naturally had the dignity of a superior. Even though his aura did not fluctuate, it still formed a kind of expert's aura that made people feel stifled. After all, the thin cultivator was from his own family and knew his own situation. In the face of Xiaoling Yu's pressure, he naturally felt a little guilty and avoided his eyes. Humph! You took my 800,000 yang crystals and still don't admit it. Just you wait, I'll go find the city guards to arrest you now. After saying a few words, the thin cultivator slipped out of the shop and quickly disappeared. At this moment, the old shopkeeper behind the counter clearly showed some disappointment on his old face. If I'm not wrong, shopkeeper should already know that scoundrel from just now, right? Xiaoling Yu turned to the old shopkeeper and asked. His eyes narrowed, and his gaze was like a knife. Even if the old shopkeeper's cultivation was in the Nirvana realm, he didn't show any weakness. In any case, in this floating cloud city, as long as the cultivator's cultivation wasn't in the celestial realm, unless they were deliberately courting death, they wouldn't dare to make a move here. I don't know him. Although the old shopkeeper's expression returned to normal, he still lowered his head. Shopkeeper should know that that guy definitely won't go find the city guards. Of course, there are some things that everyone knows in their hearts, and there's no need to investigate further. After all, we weren't fooled just now. Xiaoling Yu smiled indifferently, and the cold expression on his face disappeared. He said again, shopkeeper should be able to state the real price now, right? 21,500,000 yang crystals, the lowest price. The old shopkeeper replied, but in his heart, he was thinking that a young cultivator who hadn't reached the Nirvana realm and could take out so many yang crystals must have an extraordinary background, and he couldn't offend him too deeply. That's an acceptable price. Xiaoling Yu took out the storage pouch that he had prepared earlier and threw it on the counter, saying, Shopkeeper, please count it. The old shopkeeper's divine sense entered the storage pouch, and after counting for a while, he nodded and said, Not bad, not a single piece is missing. This life pearl is yours. Xiaoling Yu closed the jade box, added some restrictions, and then led Miling and Linger out of the shop. Brother Xiao is still the best. After leaving the shop, Mi Ling praised from the bottom of his heart. Xiaoling Yu shook his head and said, It's not about whether he's the best or not, it's just that I can't swallow my anger. We may not be the strongest in the world of immortals, but we can't be bullied by any random person. That guy is following behind us. Linger suddenly said. Xiaoling Yu and Miling turned to look at the same time, and really saw a lean figure hiding in a shop. He's really haunting us. Miling said angrily. Haha, the king of hell is easy to deal with, but the little ghosts are hard to deal with. Xiaoling Yu laughed. What do you mean? Miling didn't understand. Nothing, it's just a saying from my hometown. Xiaoling Yu replied. Now that the most important task in Floating Cloud City had been completed, and the shopkeeper didn't have much time, everyone naturally didn't want to delay any longer, and had the thought of returning. There's no rush to go back, let's get rid of that guy first. Although he's a scoundrel, he's not weak either. If he follows us out of the city and attacks us outside, we'll be in trouble. Xiaoling Yu then led Miling and Linger to quickly walk around Danxiang Peak, squeezing through the crowds of cultivators, and then constantly changing directions in the crisscrossing streets. After walking around for 2 full days, they finally couldn't see the lean cultivator's figure behind them. Chapter 801. During the years they spent in the Lost Islands, Xiaoling Yu and the other two had been to many places with hidden treasures. Not to mention other things, they had obtained more than 20 sets of alchemy recipes. Xiaoling Yu didn't have much free time to study alchemy, so since there were prescriptions here, he might as well take them out and sell them for some yang crystals. As long as he had enough yang crystals, he wouldn't have to worry about not having enough alchemy pills in the future. Since he was selling prescriptions, he naturally couldn't disclose the contents of the prescription first. The rule was that the seller would state the name of the pill the prescription could refine, and then the buyer would evaluate it. If both sides reached an agreement, the transaction could be carried out. Shopkeeper, I have a prescription for the 7-star pill here, please give me an estimate. Xiaoling Yu walked to the counter and said straightforwardly. Perhaps because there were very few customers buying prescriptions, the middle-aged shopkeeper behind the counter looked a little sleepy at first, but after hearing Xiaoling Yu's words, he finally woke up a little and said, Your Excellency, don't try to deceive me. As we all know, the 7-star pill has been lost for a long time. Even if you have a prescription, it is estimated that it is defective or a counterfeit. Xiaoling Yu smiled and said, My prescription is absolutely complete. As for whether it is defective or counterfeit, you will know after the shopkeeper states the price. The shopkeeper's interest was still not very high, and he said indifferently, If it is a complete and genuine 7-star pill prescription, I will give your excellency 8 million yang crystals. Only 8 million, that's too little. It seems that shopkeeper is not interested in the 7-star pill prescription. Xiaoling Yu shook his head and then turned to leave. Although he didn't know the market price, from the description of the prescription, the 7-star pill prescription was definitely worth more than 10 million yang crystals. Wait. The shopkeeper called out softly and then said, 13 million yang crystals. Xiaoling Yu nodded with satisfaction and put the 7-star pill prescription on the counter. The prescription was a special leather scroll. After the shopkeeper unfolded it, he skillfully rubbed it with his palm wrapped in a strange light for a while, and the small words written on it suddenly bloomed with silver light, looking very magical. The shopkeeper looked carefully for a while and said, It's actually the 7-star pill's medicinal formula. Subsequently, the shopkeeper paid Xiaoling Yu 13 million yang crystals and asked, Little brother, do you have any other similar prescriptions? Xiaoling Yu hesitated for a moment before nodding. Yes, but the shopkeeper didn't offer a high price. I'd like to ask elsewhere. The shopkeeper smiled and said, That's how business is. In fact, although the price I offered wasn't high, it definitely wasn't low either. Even if you went elsewhere to ask, it would be difficult to find a buyer with a high price, and it might not be safe either. Xiaoling Yu didn't argue, and he immediately withdrew 2 more leather scrolls and said, Heavenly Dew Pill and Rebirth Pill. Shopkeeper, please make a bid. Nirvana Pill? The shopkeeper's eyes suddenly lit up and he said, Is it a Nirvana Pill that can allow a nascent soul cultivator to directly enter the Nirvana realm? That's right. Xiaoling Yu nodded. Although the Nirvana Pill was powerful, it was very difficult to refine, and the materials needed were also very difficult to find. For Xiaoling Yu, it was of little value. The shopkeeper began to calculate, and his expression changed again and again. He said, We already have the refining method of the Heavenly Dew Pill, but since fellow Taoist has taken it out, I can't ask fellow Taoist to take it back. I'll just give you 5 million yang crystals. As for the Nirvana Pill, the shopkeeper pondered for a moment and said, We can give you 50 million yang crystals. Xiaoling Yu knew that the Nirvana Pill's prescription should have been lost. From the powerful effect of the Nirvana Pill, it could be inferred that its value must be very high. The valuation of 50 million yang crystals was a bit low. However, he had just arrived at the world of immortals and was lacking yang crystals. The Nirvana Pill was useless in his hands, so it was good that it could be sold for so many yang crystals. Therefore, after pretending to hesitate for a long time, he still nodded. Miling, who was standing at the side, was shocked and had mixed feelings. If the yang crystals obtained from selling the prescription were also given to him, wouldn't he become a rich man in the blink of an eye? Miling clearly remembered that he had obtained more than 20 prescriptions in the Mystic Maze Islands. At that time, he didn't care too much and thought that these prescriptions were not treasures, but now it seemed that these prescriptions were the biggest harvest in the Mystic Maze Islands. In fact, Xiaoling Yu had long thought that these prescriptions might be of great value. After all, they came from the Mystic Maze Islands, and the Mystic Maze Islands had been formed for countless years, so the treasures hidden in it should be very old. The 7-star pill cost 13 million yang crystals, the Heavenly Dew Pill cost 5 million yang crystals, and the Nirvana Pill cost a total of 50 million yang crystals. In this way, the 3 prescriptions actually gave Shaolin Yu 67 million yang crystals. Then the 20 million yang crystals used to buy the life pearl of the Nirvana Soul Stage Moon Attribute Demonic Beast was nothing. At least at this moment, Myling no longer had to worry about selling his house. With so many yang crystals, it was enough for Shaolin Yu, his wife and friends to cultivate for a long time. He didn't sell any more prescriptions and left the shop with a large amount of yang crystals. Similarly, Shaolin Yu and the others cautiously wandered around Floating Cloud City for 2 days. They took out 1/3 of their sun crystals and exchanged them for 2 million moon crystals. After purchasing a lot of cultivation resources, Shaolin Yu and the others left the city. However, not long after they left the city, Shaolin Yu had already discovered that a cultivator was following them. That cultivator was at the 9th heavenly layer of longevity stage and his speed was not slow. Even if Shaolin Yu used the wings of extreme speed, it was difficult to shake him off. Floating Cloud City naturally prohibited fighting, and because there were many cultivators coming in and out of the city, it was not convenient to fight. Therefore, the cultivator following them was only following them, so Shaolin Yu could only let him follow. What surprised Shaolin Yu and the others was that not long after, the skinny cultivator also came and met up with the cultivator who was following them before. They were obviously in the same group. After a while, the other party went from 2 to 3, and then from 3 to 4. Shaolin Yu's face became more and more gloomy. After the number of the other party reached 6, it did not increase anymore. However, there were 2 experts whose cultivation level Shaolin Yu could not see through. Moreover, there was no Nirvana realm existence among the 3 of them. No matter how he looked at it, the other party could easily kill the 3 of them. Perhaps it was because they were confident that they would win, the other 6 cultivators did not chase them too closely. They followed them from afar, and it seemed that they wanted to leave the Floating Cloud City and go to a place where other cultivators rarely appeared before taking action. After flying at full speed for close to 4 hours, the other 6 cultivators finally began to speed up and approach them. Not only did Shaolin Yu not speed up to escape, but he also stopped and took out a stack of array flags. Then, he waved his hand and scattered the array flags in all directions. The entire movement was smooth, and it was done in one breath. From the moment the array flags were taken out to the moment they were thrown into the void, it was only an instant. When the 6 cultivators saw Shaolin Yu and the others stop, they also stopped. They all saw Shaolin Yu's movement when he threw out the array flags. That kid seems to be setting up an array. A cultivator with a fierce face said. He was the other Nirvana realm expert besides the skinny cultivator. Boss, he has not reached the Nirvana realm. What tricks can he play? The skinny cultivator said nonchalantly. It's better to be careful. The 3 of them do not look simple. The boss with a valiant face said. What surprised them was that after a while, one of the 3 people on the other side mysteriously disappeared. Strange, I can't find where that girl is hiding. The skinny cultivator said with a frown. Just as he finished speaking, the girl he mentioned appeared again, but this time, she was less than 100 feet away from them. She let loose a delicate cry as she unleashed a cloud of mist that resembled a nebula. The fog surged like a tide. The 6 cultivators' hearts jumped, and they tried their best to resist. What they never expected was that the seemingly terrifying fog did not have much attack power. Not only was it unable to break through their defense, it did not even bring them the slightest threat. "Ha, is that all you've got?" The skinny cultivator laughed and then rushed over. Unfortunately, just as he rushed over 500 feet, the girl strangely disappeared under the lock of his divine sense. "You're just SOSO. After the girl reappeared, she replied with a somewhat disdainful tone. "Humph. Everyone, let's go together. I'll give 1,000,000 yang crystals to whoever catches this girl." The skinny cultivator was enraged. He did not believe that he could not catch a girl who was not even at the 5th celestial layer of immortal life realm. In addition to the valiant leader, the other 4 immortal life realm cultivators all moved out. It seemed that 1,000,000 yang crystals was a great temptation to them. The leader, on the other hand, was staring at Xiaoling Yu and Mei Ling not far away. He did not participate in the pursuit of Ling Er. Ling Er first played with the 5 cultivators for a while, then pretended to be exhausted and retreated towards Xiaoling Yu and Mei Ling. The 5 cultivators saw hope and chased after her without thinking. When the 5 cultivators, including the skinny cultivator, were within 200 feet, Xiaoling Yu's fingers trembled and quickly formed a seal. She also began to chant an incantation. "Not good, second brother, quickly retreat," the valiant leader reminded loudly. Unfortunately, it was too late at this moment. The 8-sided Nirvana flame sealing formation had been activated. Several tall black formation flags suddenly appeared and spewed scorching Nirvana true fire at the 5 cultivators. In the bewildering maze expanse, Xiaoling Yu had obtained an increase in his cultivation, and his level of control towards the 8-sided Nirvana flame sealing formation had increased greatly. Not only was he able to make it more stable, he was even able to maintain it for 4 hours. In just an instant, the 4 immortal life realm cultivators were turned into ashes. The power of Nirvana true fire was not something that immortal life realm cultivators could resist. Even the skinny cultivator with Nirvana realm cultivation could only desperately release his Nirvana true fire to resist at this moment. It seemed that he could not even hold on for 100 breaths. Chapter 802. Fellow Taoist, please have mercy. I'm willing to pay 10 million yang crystals in exchange for my brother's life. The valiant boss shouted anxiously as he couldn't take down Ling Yu after attacking for a long time. If it was in the past, Xiaoling Yu might have considered the other party's proposal. However, he didn't lack yang crystals now, so he ignored the offer. 15 million, 20 million. The valiant boss raised the price again and again in desperation. Unfortunately, just as he shouted 20 million, his skinny brother had already been annihilated. The skinny cultivator was only at the body puppet stage, so he naturally couldn't last long in the 8-faced Nirvana fire sealing formation. After killing him, Xiaoling Yu put away his storage magic treasure and controlled the formation flags to move toward the valiant boss. The valiant boss had just entered the Nirvana heart stage. He knew that he couldn't deal with the flag formation and didn't understand it. Thus, he chose to flee in panic. If a Nirvana heart stage expert wanted to escape, Xiaoling Yu and the 8-faced Nirvana fire sealing formation couldn't do anything. However, Xiaoling Yu's goal was to force the other party away. He didn't intend to kill the other party. After all, the other party hadn't entered the formation yet. After pretending to chase for a while, Xiaoling Yu waited until the other party disappeared before he quickly put away the formation flags and flew toward Gourd Island at full speed. Although Floating Cloud City was the closest city to Gourd Bay, it would take a few years for a cultivator who had yet to reach the Nirvana realm to fly and travel. Even though it was possible to reach there quickly using the teleportation formation, it would take a cultivator who had yet to reach the Nirvana realm to travel. It took nearly 2 years to fly to the estuary. Then, they took out the blue boat and hurried on. The blue boat braved the wind and waves. After traveling for 10 days, Xiaoling Yu and the other 2 saw a large golden ship heading toward them. Both the blue boat and the golden ship were traveling at an extremely fast speed. Even if they changed directions, it was inevitable that they would encounter each other. The golden ship was naturally the Yun family's ship. Xiaoling Yu cautiously took out the stacked formation flags. However, the Yun family cultivators on the golden ship didn't know that Xiaoling Yu was on the blue boat, so they didn't slow down. Instead, they took the initiative to change their course to avoid colliding with the blue boat. The 2 ships were separated by tens of thousands of feet and sailed past each other without stopping. The Yun family cultivators on the golden ship probably didn't pay much attention to the small boat. After traveling on the sea for 2 months, the blue boat smoothly reached the coast of Gourd Island. They put the boat away and flew toward Gourd Island at full speed. Although they had been discovered by the Yun family's scouts when they entered the city, they had already entered the city. The Yun family didn't have time to react and send out their men of sacrifice before they entered the Awakening God Tower. The steward's expression was even worse than before. He was originally a middle-aged man, but now he looked like an old man with one foot in the grave. It seemed that if Xiaoling Yu and the others had come back a few years later, he would have already left. Xiaoling Yu didn't waste any words and directly took out the Nirvana Soul Realm Moon-type Beast's Fate Pearl. The Nirvana Soul Realm manager was very excited and tears even flowed out of his cloudy eyes. He stood up shakily and was about to thank Xiaoling Yu and the other two, but he was stopped by Myling. "This is a spirit essence pill. I believe Sir will need it." Xiaoling Yu left a spirit essence pill before leading Myling and Linger out of the room. They went to the room where their wives and friends were temporarily staying. They didn't want to delay the Nirvana Soul Realm manager's recovery. They hadn't been gone for long, so their wives and friends hadn't changed much. When they saw Xiaoling Yu, they complained that the room was too small. Xiaoling Yu smiled and promised, "Your husband will soon give you a bigger house." Although there were very few houses in Gourd City and they were very expensive, as long as you had enough yang crystals, you could still buy a big house. Due to some grudges with the Yun family, it was inconvenient for Xiaoling Yu to come forward. He gave Myling 10 million yang crystals and asked him to help find a spacious house in the city. Myling only took 5 days to complete this task. He bought a big house in the north of the city that was twice the size of his original house. Xiaoling Yu and his wives and friends happily moved out of the Awakening God Tower and lived in their own house. As for the shift, the Nirvana Soul Realm manager had already made adjustments, so he and Myling didn't have to worry about it. In this big house, there were also defensive arrays and restrictions set up by the City Lord's Mansion's experts. Xiaoling Yu temporarily set up the 8-sided Nirvana Fire Sealing Array inside, so he didn't have to worry about the Yun family's Death Warriors attacking again. After Myling chose a quiet room, he began to work hard to advance to the 8th heavenly layer. With so many yang crystals as support, he naturally didn't lack the resources needed for a breakthrough. Smoothly advancing was just around the corner. Xiaoling Yu first distributed the yang crystals and cultivation resources that he had prepared for his wives and friends, and then began to improve his cultivation base. A large number of yang crystals and moon crystals were refined into chaos force by him, and then he let the chaos nascent soul absorb it. The speed of improvement could be said to be 1,000 miles a day. 10 years passed in a blink of an eye. Mi Ling successfully advanced to the 8th celestial layer of longevity while Xiaoling Yu's wish was fulfilled. His cultivation base and soul realm had reached the late stage of the 10th revolution chaotic creation realm, which was comparable to the 9th celestial layer of longevity. His wives and friends also made different degrees of progress. After all, they didn't lack resources, and their aptitude and comprehension were good. But now, he had to consider a very practical problem. He would soon reach the peak of the late 10th cycle chaos creation realm, so how could he continue to cultivate? Even if he reached the peak of the late 10th cycle chaos creation realm, it was estimated that at most, it would be comparable to the body realm. What should he do next? Create another 11th cycle? What should he do with the 11th cycle? It was not easy to create one's own cultivation method. The higher the level, the more difficult it was. Xiaoling Yu could imagine that the 11th cycle should be the Chaos Nirvana stage, but he didn't understand the concept of the Chaos Nirvana stage. When he created the 10th cycle Chaos Creation Realm, he had the guidance of the light door in the Chaos Spectrum. Now, to create the 11th cycle, he could only rely on himself. Xiaoling Yu hadn't thought of a clue yet, but the steward of the Awakening God Tower came to visit. After 10 years of healing, although the steward had not recovered to his middle-aged appearance, he still looked a little old, and his face was still pale, but at least his body was a lot stronger, and his injury had stabilized. The steward came to sincerely thank Xiaoling Yu and Myling, and reminded them to go to the Awakening God Tower to make up for the time they owed if they had nothing to do, and then left. He also felt the existence of those array flags in the courtyard, but he didn't ask. With Xiaoling Yu and Myling's current wealth, they naturally didn't need to go to the Awakening God Tower to earn that meager income, but the two still went to the Awakening God Tower to make up for the time they owed. It wasn't just to give face to the steward, but also because they were scheming. Xiaoling Yu and Myling's scheme was that the teleportation array in the Awakening God Tower could provide them with great convenience. Just like how a slut who tasted the sweetness of stealing would always think of stealing again, Xiaoling Yu and Miling had obtained great benefits from the Lost Islands last time, and naturally wanted to visit the Lost Islands again in the future. After 10 years of work, Xiaoling Yu and Miling were invited by the steward before they left for home. "Have you ever thought of making another trip to the Lost Trace Islands?" the manager asked. "This, of course we've thought about it." Miling paused for a moment before replying. "I just received a reliable piece of news. Many experts from the inland are heading towards the Lost Islands. I reckon that something strange has happened there," the steward said. Since so many experts are heading there, it's best if we don't join in the fun. After all, our strength is limited. I'm afraid that we won't be able to obtain any benefits even if we go. Instead, it's very likely that we'll be in danger," Miling said rationally. Xiaoling Yu also nodded. "There's also another reliable piece of news. This time, an astral magnetic body will appear in the Lost Islands. You might not know this, but obtaining an astral magnetic body will allow a cultivator to quickly cultivate to the astral extreme realm without any obstacles." The steward continued to explain, and to obtain an astral magnetic body, it doesn't depend on who's stronger, but on luck. The most important thing is that the astral magnetic body isn't too attractive to astral extreme realm experts. Moreover, after it appears, it will quickly choose its owner. This time, there shouldn't be any astral extreme realm experts going to fight for it. Xiaoling Yu then asked, "How's Sir's injury recovering?" The steward replied, "It's basically stable." Xiaoling Yu continued to ask, "Then what kind of strength can Sir display?" The steward pondered for a moment before replying, "At the early stage of the Nirvana soul realm." Xiaoling Yu frowned and said, "If we encounter an expert in the Lost Islands, even if it's not an astral extreme realm expert, we don't have any powerful life-saving methods." The steward shook his head and said, "That's not the case. I have a teleportation talisman on me. If we encounter an unstoppable danger, it can teleport us 100,000 li if Sir goes alone. At least you don't have to worry about the astral magnetic body being obtained by the two of us." Xiaoling Yu said meaningfully, "Brother Xiao, there's no need to doubt me. I just don't want the two of you to miss this opportunity. I don't have any other thoughts. If I have any bad intentions towards the two of you, there's no need to go through so much trouble. The three of us going together will have a better chance than me going alone. Even if I don't have the fate to obtain the astral magnetic body, if one of the two of you obtains it, I will also be incomparably happy." The steward heard the hidden meaning behind Xiaoling Yu's words and said sincerely. Xiaoling Yu couldn't help but secretly feel ashamed. He felt that he was too cautious. However, if he wasn't so cautious, how could he have reached where he was today? "Then the two of us will accompany Sir to try our luck. Wealth comes from danger, after all. Who knows, maybe one of us will really encounter great luck this time," Miling immediately said, alleviating the somewhat awkward atmosphere in the room. Chapter 803. The bewildering Maze archipelago had been quiet for many years, but recently, it gradually became noisy. Countless experts came from the inner and outer seas of the Gourd Bay as well as the Immortals' mainland. Among them, those with old grudges would fight, and those with new grudges would inevitably compete. In short, as long as cultivators gathered, there would inevitably be conflicts. According to legend, not long ago, an expedition team came. They went deep into the bewildering Maze archipelago and used a special magic to sink to the bottom of the sea. They actually found the real reason why everyone was lost in the bewildering Maze archipelago for many years. At the bottom of the bewildering Maze archipelago, there was a piece of star pole magnet. It was precisely because of it that when cultivators and ships entered the bewildering Maze archipelago, they would unknowingly deviate from their course. Because this piece of star pole magnet was hidden in a very hidden place, and it itself wasn't very big, it was very inconspicuous. Therefore, for a long time, no cultivator had discovered it. As for how that expedition team discovered the star pole magnet, it was unknown. However, this wasn't important. The important thing was that even though the expedition team discovered this secret first, they were powerless to take away the star pole magnet. Because there were no astral extreme realm experts among them, they couldn't even get close to that fist-sized star pole magnet. The temptation of the star pole magnet to cultivators below the astral extreme realm was undoubtedly huge. Since ancient times, those who could enter the nirvana realm from the immoral realm were already very few. And those who could enter the astral extreme realm from the nirvana realm were even more pitifully few. Among hundreds of millions of cultivators, it was rare to see an astral extreme realm expert. And astral extreme realm experts could be considered as the true experts of the immoral realm. To have the opportunity to enter the astral extreme realm without any danger was naturally something that many nirvana realm cultivators yearned for even in their dreams. Now that there was such a rare opportunity waiting for everyone in the bewildering maze archipelago, it naturally made everyone scramble like a flock of ducks. However, there were really too many cultivators who came. Most of them were nirvana realm experts who came from the immortals mainland after hearing the news. There was also a portion of immoral realm cultivators who came to try their luck. However, immoral realm cultivators usually came with the protection of nirvana realm experts. As for whether or not there were any astral extreme realm experts, that was something no one knew. After all, astral extreme realm experts would not easily reveal themselves. Moreover, even if they did reveal themselves, ordinary cultivators would not be able to see through their true cultivation. Normally, there would definitely be extreme astral realm experts coming over. Although they wouldn't be able to use the star pole magnet, and wouldn't be able to snatch it and give it to the younger generation disciples, who knew if there would be other opportunities in this bewildering maze ocean? As the Gourd Islands Gourd cities Yun Clan and Sang Clan had the advantage of being in close proximity to the star pole magnet. However, they didn't get to know the star pole magnet first. They had sent many experts from their clans here, but they still hadn't seen what it looked like. The center of the bewildering maze archipelago was not a small sea, and the enormous water pressure made it impossible for ordinary cultivators to reach the bottom of the sea. They could only resist the attacks of the powerful sea beasts in the bewildering maze archipelago while patiently waiting. There were many cultivators waiting like them. It was precisely because there were enough cultivators here that a large number of nirvana realm experts came at the same time that everyone was able to stay in the depths of the bewildering maze archipelago for a long time. The Awakening God Tower's manager, Lord Yu, brought Shaoling Yu, Miling, and Ling Er, were transported to the depths of the Gourd Bay's inner sea. They rode the blue boat at full speed for nearly 10 years before finally entering the bewildering maze archipelago's sea area. With the countless experts leading the way, the sea beasts in the periphery of the bewildering maze archipelago were almost completely wiped out. Even the sea beasts that weren't slaughtered all swam to the depths of the sea area and continued to attack the experts who had already entered the center of the archipelago. It wasn't the first time Shaoling Yu's group of 4 had come to the bewildering maze archipelago, and the manager seemed to be very familiar with the bewildering maze archipelago's sea area. Under his control, the blue boat steadily and quickly sailed towards the depths of the sea area. Along the way, they didn't stop because of the attacks of the sea beasts. Under Lord Yu's control, the blue boat spent nearly half a year before finally arriving at the center of the bewildering maze archipelago. At this time, it was very difficult to encounter any powerful sea beasts here. Instead, one could often see ships of different sizes sailing through the fog on the surface of the sea. Many of the cultivators who came from inland didn't often go out to sea, so they prepared their ships at the last minute. Compared to the ships of the Yun and Sang clans, their ships were much simpler and weaker. The Yun clan's golden ship and the Sang clan's black iron ship looked like 2 moving metal islands. They gave off a mighty, domineering, heavy, and solid feeling. Lord Yu's blue boat, on the other hand, was very ordinary. It looked just like the exposed fin of a blue sea beast. After the blue boat cruised in the center of the bewildering maze archipelago for nearly 3 months, Ling Er suddenly had a thought. He pointed at a small island not far away and said, "Let's stop at that small island." Shaoling Yu and Miling understood tacitly. They knew that there was definitely something unusual about that small island, but they only agreed and didn't say anything. Lord Yu frowned and said, "That island is too small. It won't be easy to hide our tracks." Myling said, "We don't have any enemies. Moreover, the experts who came here are all very cautious and low-key. They won't easily fight with other cultivators. It doesn't make much of a difference where we stop. After all, the sea beasts here are almost completely wiped out." The reason why those large ships were cruising on the surface of the sea was because they were looking for sea beasts that hadn't been wiped out. Lord Yu didn't say anything else and steered the boat towards the small island. After waiting on the small island for nearly a month, the 4 people standing at the highest point of the small island suddenly discovered that experts with various colored rings of light flew up from the small island or ship and then fell into the water. They didn't come back up for a long time. It seems like they're preparing to move. Let's go down as well. As Lord Yu spoke, he took out 4 talisman papers. He stuck one on his body and gave one to Shaolin Yu and the other 2. He said, "Pour some energy into the talisman paper. It will automatically activate and form a ring of light that can repel water. It will allow us to easily fall to the bottom of the sea. However, it can only last for 4 hours." As soon as he finished speaking, a ring of blue light appeared on Lord Yu's body. Shaolin Yu and the other 2 followed his instructions. A ring of light appeared on each of their bodies and then they followed Lord Yu into the sea. The sea beasts in the sea had basically been wiped out. Naturally, there wasn't the slightest bit of resistance in the process of falling to the bottom of the sea. After falling for nearly an hour, the 4 of them finally reached the bottom of the sea. With the protection of the ring of light, the strong water pressure only limited their movement speed. It didn't cause them any other pressure or trouble. After searching the bottom of the sea for the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the 4 of them finally found the place where the experts were gathered. Their bodies were shining with light, making the pitch-black bottom of the sea very bright. At this time, those experts were constantly attacking a cave at the bottom of the sea not far away. The cave was constantly being blasted open, and they were constantly pushing forward. Presumably, the star pole magnet should be in the depths of the cave. The bombardment only lasted for a while, and those cultivators all stopped. They saw a tombstone-like stone tablet standing in front of them. The stone tablet was no less than 3,000 feet tall, 3,000 feet wide, and 500 feet thick. Looking at it from afar, it gave people a heavy feeling of oppression. There were words carved on the stone tablet. Although the words were dim, they were, after all, too big. Shaolin Yu could clearly see the words Tomb of the Azure Emperor from afar. It seemed that it really was a tombstone. It was unknown how it had ended up here. Azure Emperor? Could it be the Azure Emperor from Earth's ancient times? Shaolin Yu frowned and thought in his heart. Near the top of the tombstone, there was a pitch-black iron ball that constantly shone with bursts of starlight. Although it was only the size of a fist, it was the target of everyone's trip, the star pole magnet. However, at this moment, everyone could only look at it from afar, because the tombstone was constantly emitting invisible waves. Unless one was an astral pinnacle realm expert, it was impossible to approach it. Before everyone made a move, a few more experts suddenly arrived at the bottom of the sea. These experts didn't have defensive halos on their bodies, but the aura they released was enough to resist the powerful water pressure, preventing the seawater from approaching. Looking at their calm auras and indifferent expressions, one could guess that these experts were astral pinnacle realm existences. Everyone, who had been pointing and discussing spiritedly, all quieted down at this moment, their gazes fixed on the experts who had just arrived. Azure Emperor? Azure Emperor is also dead? The ancient Star Road has been a dead end since ancient times. Naturally, they will die if they go in. Fortunately, I didn't go in at that time. Even Azure Emperor died inside. If I went, I'm afraid I would only be a stepping stone for them. The few astral pinnacle realm experts discussed for a while, then bowed deeply towards the tombstone. Unexpectedly, they leaped away together, without the slightest intention of touching the tombstone. After confirming that the astral pinnacle realm experts had gone far away, the Nirvana realm cultivators surrounding the tombstone began to attack. When their attacks reached within 300 meters of the tombstone, most of them were blocked by an invisible force. However, a portion of their attacks landed on the tombstone, causing the tombstone to tremble slightly. The tombstone's defensive power wasn't as solid as it looked. Under the bombardment of several hundred Nirvana realm experts, it only lasted for the time it took to brew a cup of tea before exploding with a loud bang. The instant the tombstone exploded, the iron ball-like astral magnet whistled out, rushing towards the crowd of cultivators. In the blink of an eye, the astral magnet sank into the body of a cultivator. However, that cultivator didn't even have time to cast a technique to escape before the attacks of the surrounding cultivators landed on his body. In an instant, his body also exploded. The astral magnet became an ownerless object again. After a slight tremble, it seemed to have found a suitable host and rushed out again. Another cultivator was chosen, but a moment later, he was tragically surrounded and killed. Chapter 804. At this moment, the astral pole magnet was like a vengeful ghost. Whoever it pounced on would die. The powerhouses gathered here all had their eyes firmly locked onto the star pole magnet. Wherever it passed, the powerhouses would bombard it with attacks. It didn't matter if it drilled into someone's body or not. After the powerhouses began their attacks, they didn't stop. At this rate, even if the astral pole magnet entered Shaolin Yu and the others' bodies, Lord, you wouldn't be able to crush the teleportation talisman in time. The attacks from the surrounding cultivators would be enough to directly kill the four of them. We can't do this. Let's retreat first, Myling said calmly. Although Lord Yu was a little reluctant, his rationality still prevailed over his greed. He nodded and floated to the surface of the sea with the others. There were also many cultivators who knew that it was too dangerous to stand here. After observing for a while, they also chose to temporarily hide on the surface of the sea. When they reached the surface of the sea, Shaolin Yu and the others returned to the small island that they had stopped at before. They stood on the highest point of the island and looked at the turbulent sea. With so many experts attacking below, the fog-shrouded sea naturally couldn't calm down. Gradually, more and more cultivators floated up from the bottom of the sea. They all floated above the sea, either in groups of 3 or 5 or alone. They waited quietly and were on full alert. For hours later, a layer of raging waves suddenly rose up on the already turbulent sea surface. Then, the surface of the sea suddenly split in the middle, and a group of over 100 experts flew out from the sea. The cultivator in the lead was extremely fast. As soon as he jumped out of the sea, he flew towards the east. Unfortunately, the cultivators behind him couldn't catch up to him. However, the cultivators waiting on the surface of the sea all attacked at the same time. Streaks of light spread out like a meteor shower. In the blink of an eye, the cultivator who jumped out of the water first was submerged. Rumbling sounds of explosions rang out continuously. The cultivator's body exploded along with many streaks of light. After the streaks of light exploded, the astral pole magnet, which was as black as an iron ball but shone with starlight, appeared. Similarly, it trembled for a moment before the star pole magnet flew towards another cultivator at an extremely fast speed. The speed of the star pole magnet was extremely fast, even a Nirvana realm cultivator could not avoid it. It quickly sank into the body of another cultivator. Just like when it was at the bottom of the sea, wherever the star pole magnet went, it would become the target of everyone's bombardment. As it flew forward, countless beams of light followed behind it. Although the cultivator had prepared 3 defensive magic treasures and had set up several dozen defensive light barriers around his body, he was only able to hold on for 2 breaths of time under the bombardment of the countless streaks of light before his body suddenly exploded. At present, there were no less than 300 Nirvana realm experts on the surface of the sea. There were also thousands of Immortality realm cultivators like Myling and Shaolin Yu who were ready to try their luck. It was wishful thinking for any cultivator to take away the astral pole magnet. After becoming an ownerless object once again, the star pole magnet shot towards a large golden ship. The large golden ship was very conspicuous. It was the Yun clan's ship. At this moment, there was a Nirvana realm cultivator of the Yun clan standing at the bow of the golden ship. The star pole magnet was clearly aimed at him. The Yun clan expert seemed to have been prepared. In the next moment, a golden light barrier appeared around the large golden ship. At this moment, the star pole magnet had already sunk into his body. The countless streams of light that followed the star pole magnet fiercely slammed into the golden ship's light shield. Although the light shield was blasted open, it didn't cause much damage to the Yun family's powerhouse. The large ship began to accelerate, wanting to quickly leave this place. At the same time, a golden light barrier appeared once again, tightly enveloping the large ship. Wave after wave of streaks of light continuously bombarded the large golden ship. The light barrier of the large golden ship was continuously blasted open. The Yun clan expert only lasted for 100 breaths of time before his body was blasted into a bloody mist. Even the large golden ship sank into the sea. The other Yun clan experts gritted their teeth in hatred, but there was nothing they could do. Although no one dared to provoke them in Gourd City, they did not have the strength to deal with hundreds of Nirvana realm cultivators at the same time. At this point, the situation was too chaotic. Many of the more rational individuals who acted alone all fled far away. "Let's go too," Myling said with a gloomy face. Lord Yu also saw that it was almost impossible to fish in troubled waters, so he nodded. "Let's not be in a hurry to leave. There should be treasures hidden on this island." "It won't be too late for us to leave after we get the treasures," Linger said. "If we don't leave now, it will be too late if one of us is selected by the star pole magnet," Myling said worriedly. "If we could be selected, we would have been selected a long time ago," Xiaoling Yu said noncommittally. "Is there really a treasure here?" Lord Yu asked curiously. "I'm not sure if there is a treasure or not, but there is indeed a place on this island with a very strange energy fluctuation," Linger replied. "Then let's go take a look first," Lord Yu said after a moment of hesitation. Thus, the four of them did not look at who the star pole magnet was heading towards. Instead, they followed Linger to a stone wall on the northern side of the island. This stone wall was very flat and did not look like anything special. Under Linger's guidance, Xiaoling Yu fiercely punched the stone wall. Then, a restriction fluctuation appeared on the stone wall, neutralizing Xiaoling Yu's attack. "Let me do it!" Lord Yu took a step forward and shouted. A dazzling golden flame snake slammed into the stone wall. After a series of crackling sounds, the restriction fluctuations on the stone wall collapsed into nothingness. Then, the entrance to a cave appeared. "I'll scout ahead." Linger rushed into the cave first and disappeared into the darkness. Lord Yu frowned slightly. He was a bit worried for Linger. After all, he did not know how profound Linger's concealment technique was. Without any hesitation, Lord Yu led Xiaoling Yu and Myling into the cave. The cave was straight down. The slope was not very steep, but it was very obvious. Linger, who was scouting ahead, did not send any warning. Xiaoling Yu and the others naturally continued forward at a moderate pace. In less than the time it took to brew a cup of tea, Linger suddenly retreated and said with a frown, "The situation up ahead is a bit strange. There seems to be a sea beast of unknown strength sealed down there. The strange energy fluctuation I felt before came from that sealing formation. Since we're already here, why don't we go in and take a look? In any case, that sea beast is sealed. It shouldn't pose any danger to us," Myling said. "Are you sure there aren't any opportunities down there?" Lord Yu asked. "There are definitely opportunities. For example, the treasure used to seal that sea beast, or the sea beast itself," Linger replied indifferently. "The bewildering maze sea was formed countless years ago. That sea beast has been sealed for so many years. Even if it is not dead, its situation is probably not good. We can go in and take a look first." After Lord Yu said this, he took the lead and continued forward. Xiaoling Yu and the others followed closely behind. After another 200 breaths of time, the group of four arrived at the location of the seal that Linger mentioned. This place was similar to an underground hall. All four sides were flat stone walls. There was only an almost transparent restriction light door that led into the hall. The four of them stood outside the restriction light door and scanned the hall. Just as Linger said, there was a monster beast in the middle of the hall. It didn't look like a sea beast, but more like a wolf monster beast in the mainland's forest. This monster beast, which looked like a wolf and a dog, had its limbs, neck, and tail tightly bound by 6 iron chains. It looked as if it had been dead for many years. It lay motionless on the floor of the hall. On the other end of the 6 iron chains, there were 6 stone pillars engraved with mysterious runes. On each stone pillar, there was a treasure. Among the 6 treasures, there were sabers, swords, axes, spears, and whips. They were all offensive magic weapons. Each of them looked extraordinary. After looking for a while, Lord Yu waved his hand and signaled Shaolin Yu and the others to retreat. When the 3 of them retreated 100 feet, he flicked his finger and shot a wisp of Nirvana True Fire at the restriction light door. To everyone's surprise, the restriction light door did not obstruct the wisp of Nirvana True Fire at all. The Nirvana True Fire passed through the restriction light door and blasted into one of the walls of the hall. The walls of the hall were obviously set up with restrictions. The moment the Nirvana True Fire touched the stone wall, it strangely disappeared. The monster beast lying on the floor in the middle of the hall was still motionless, as if it didn't notice any movement. It was more like it was really dead. Lord Yu waved his hand and called everyone to his side. He said, "This restriction light door should be easy to pass through. After you enter, don't go out of a 3-foot radius. If there is any danger, I will immediately crush the teleportation talisman and bring you out." After everyone nodded, Lord Yu took the lead and walked towards the restriction light door. Shaolin Yu and the others still followed closely behind. As expected, the restriction light door did not stop the 4 of them. They easily entered. But when Linger tried to go out again, she was firmly blocked by the restriction light door. It seemed that one could only enter but not leave. The 4 of them looked a little dignified. Their eyes were fixed on the monster beast. Their divine senses swept over the monster beast. They could not feel the slightest fluctuation of life aura from it. However, they could not conclude that it was really dead. First, they carefully looked around the hall. Then, the 4 of them went to the top of the stone pillar where a long sword was lying. The reason why the 4 of them came in was naturally for the 6 treasures on the 6 stone pillars. However, these 6 treasures were obviously used to seal the monster beast. It was definitely not easy to take them away. Moreover, if they took them away, it was very likely that the seal would be destroyed. In the end, the monster beast, who might be playing dead, would regain its freedom. Just as the 4 of them were hesitating and thinking of countermeasures, the entire hall suddenly shook. Just as the 4 of them looked outside, they found a black light rapidly approaching. It also easily passed through the restriction light door. Then, the black light sank into Myling's body. Chapter 805. The sudden turn of events left Myling at a loss. He looked at himself in surprise, then looked at Shaolin Yu and the others. Boom! A stream of light shot in from outside the cave, penetrated the light door, and blasted the stone pillar in front of the 4 of them. The runes around the stone pillar suddenly circulated, dissolving the stream of light into nothingness. On the other hand, the long sword on the stone pillar let out a clanging sound. Then, a powerful sword intent wreaked havoc in the hall. In the next moment, Shaolin Yu and the others discovered that several Nirvana Realm powerhouses had already arrived in front of the light door in the hall. However, these Nirvana Realm powerhouses were very cautious. They did not directly rush in, but all of them stared at the seal formation and the wolf-like monster beast in the hall in surprise. The mighty and fierce sword intent fluctuations gradually converged into light swords. They shuttled back and forth in the hall, as if they wanted to kill all the outsiders here. Lord Yu let out a loud cry, and a protective barrier emerged from his body, enveloping all 4 of them. At this moment, Lord Yu was a little hesitant about whether he should crush the teleportation talisman. If he crushed it and could not successfully teleport out due to the special environment, then the four of them would lose their most powerful and convenient escape method. However, if he did not crush the teleportation talisman, the four of them would not be able to hold on for long if the sword light continued to move. The sword light continued to bombard Lord Yu's protective shield, and every bombardment caused the shield to tremble for a while. If it wasn't for Lord Yu desperately pouring out his power to support the protective shield, the four of them would have to use their own bodies to receive the sword light. More and more powerhouses gathered outside. Seeing the dangerous situation in the hall, they were not in a hurry to rush in, and all of them frowned and watched from outside. Fortunately, the long sword stopped trembling, and waves of sword intent fluctuations quickly sank into the long sword. The sword light raging in the hall also disappeared at the same time. The sealing hall fell into silence again. The experts outside all narrowed their eyes, as if they were preparing to charge in. They did not know that the reason why the hall was filled with sword light was because they had sent a stream of light inside. Otherwise, if they all attacked inside, they would be able to kill the four people inside without taking any risks. They knew that the astral pole magnet had flown in, but unfortunately, they did not see whose body the astral pole magnet had landed in. Therefore, they had listed Xiaoling Yu as a target to be killed. Xiaoling Yu and the other three were in an awkward situation. They could not retreat, and even if they could, they would not be able to face the encirclement of so many powerhouses. They could not retreat and did not know where to go. It could be said that they were in a dilemma. However, this hall was not very big, but it was not small either. After all, there was a sealing array and a huge demonic beast inside. There was not much free space inside. Even if the cultivators outside all came in, it would make the place very crowded. If everyone attacked together, it would be difficult to avoid accidental injuries. However, if it were any other time, the powerhouses outside might have rationally continued to watch from outside, but the temptation of the astral pole magnet was too strong. They only waited outside for less than 100 breaths. Seeing that there were no other abnormal movements in the hall, more than 10 cultivators took the lead and rushed in. The first 10 cultivators to enter naturally attacked Xiaoling Yu and the other 3 as soon as they entered. It was only a dozen attacks at once. Compared to hundreds and thousands of streaks of light flying on the surface of the sea, not only was the scene not as shocking and spectacular, but the lethality of the attacks was also much worse. Lord Yu suddenly stretched out one of his palms, and a fire dragon overflowing with golden light pounced out with bared fangs and brandished claws. It swept in a circle in front of the 4 people, scattering the attacks of the other party. It was obvious that those cultivators did not use their full strength. They wanted to keep themselves in peak condition as much as possible. The 6 stone pillars were all struck by the impact. They suddenly trembled, causing the 6 weapons and magical treasures to hum incessantly. Sword light, saber light, spear shadow, axe wind, scorpion mark, and whip dragon immediately displayed their might in the hall. Xiaoling Yu and the other 3 knew that there would be danger, so they all retreated to a corner of the hall. The strongest person, Lord Yu, used all his strength to defend in front of them. The cultivators who had just entered did not know that there would be such a dangerous situation. Caught off guard, half of the cultivators died on the spot. The rest who did not die also rushed to the restriction light door in a sorry state, trying to rush out to take refuge. Unfortunately, their bodies were not blocked when they entered, but when they exited, they were all bounced back. Woof! The demonic beast seemed to have just been awakened and let out a loud bark. From the bark, it should be a dog demon and not a wolf demon. It stood up, opened its mouth, and swallowed the 3 cultivators who were bounced in front of it by the restriction light door. Then, it began to chew. Streams of blood flowed out from its mouth, and the scene was very tragic. At this moment, the cultivators who were still standing outside all silently took a step back. Other than Xiaoling Yu and the other 3, there were only 5 cultivators who could still stand in the hall. They all hid under the wall and looked at the dog demon in the center of the hall with a frightened expression. The dog demon only stood up and did not make any big movements. It looked at the 9 cultivators in the hall with a cold gaze. But when it stood up, the hall became strangely quiet, and the attacks released by the 6 magic weapons completely disappeared. When its gaze fell on Shaolin Yu, its eyes suddenly narrowed. Whoosh! The dog demon suddenly turned around and rushed toward Shaolin Yu. Unfortunately, when it was only 3 meters away from the 4 of them, the iron chain around its neck prevented it from moving forward. It did not try to struggle forward. Instead, it stared at Shaolin Yu with its big eyes, as if it wanted to see through Shaolin Yu. Shaolin Yu and the other 3 were extremely nervous. The dog demon had just swallowed the Nirvana Realm cultivators, but it did not even spit out a bone. In front of it, a Nirvana Realm cultivator was as weak as a baby. Shaolin Yu and the other 3 did not know how to stop it. After hesitating for a moment, Lord Yu felt that this place was extremely dangerous. He made a prompt decision and crushed the teleportation talisman in his hand. A silver-white light instantly enveloped the 4 of them. However, the silver-white light suddenly disappeared after a burst of light. Shaolin Yu and the other 3 were still in the corner of the hall. Lord Yu revealed a bitter smile. As expected, this hall was truly a place of no return. Just as the 4 of them were feeling nervous, the dog demon actually stretched out its bloody tongue and licked Shaolin Yu's body. Shaolin Yu wanted to dodge, but he could not. At this moment, his body was licked until it was sticky. A mixture of red and white liquid kept dripping from his body, giving people an extremely disgusting feeling. In the world of immortals, there is actually such a weak existence like you among the cultivators from Earth. What was surprising was that after the dog demon licked Shaolin Yu, it actually spoke human language. It was obvious that this sentence was meant for himself. Shaolin Yu could not help but frown and said, "Senior, could it be that you are also a cultivator from Earth? You don't understand human language." "Oh, no, dog language?" the dog demon said in a bad mood. "Junior Shaolin Yu. I started cultivating a bit late, so my cultivation is only at this level." Shaolin Yu cupped his fist and said. Regardless of whether this dog demon was speaking the truth or not, he had to deal with it first. It was not that he wanted to establish a relationship with it. Fortunately, your cultivation is still weak and you ascended to the world of immortals late. Otherwise, you would have been dragged to the ancient starry sky road by those lunatics. With your talent, if you went to the ancient starry sky road, you would probably be the first to die. The dog demon said. May I ask which powerful cultivator from Earth Senior is? Shaolin Yu asked curiously. Of course it is the most powerful one among the dog demons. The dog demon replied proudly. Shaolin Yu frowned and thought for a while. Suddenly, he said, Xiao Tianquan? At least you have some knowledge. You actually know my name. The dog demon nodded and said with a very arrogant look. Is your master the Jade Emperor's nephew, Yang Jian? Shaolin Yu followed up with another question. My master is indeed called Yang Jian, but he does not have as many identities as you said. It is true that he is very powerful. Otherwise, how could he be my master? Xiao Tianquan said. Shaolin Yu knew that the myths and legends he read in the books on Earth might not be true. Many of them were just made up by later generations. The truth of Earth's cultivation world was still to be verified. Seeing that Shaolin Yu and Xiao Tianquan were chatting happily, Lord Yu and Myling were very surprised. Ling was still very calm. However, the other 5 powerful cultivators who were hiding in the corner of the hall, as well as the many powerful cultivators who were watching at the door, felt that the development of the situation was a little strange. It was a little unexpected. In this world of immortals, there are many powerful cultivators from Earth, right? Shaolin Yu asked. There are indeed many. However, those who have reached the celestial extremity realm were all taken to the ancient road of stars. Xiao Tianquan replied. Senior should also be a celestial extremity realm cultivator, right? Why are you sealed here? Shaolin Yu asked, puzzled. If you didn't mention this, I would have almost forgotten. I was sealed here by that old bastard Hong Jun. That old bastard said something about letting me wait here for the fated one. Damn it, if he told me to wait here, then I will wait. Why did he have to seal me here? I have waited here for God knows how many years. Not to mention the fated one, I haven't even seen the shadow of a ghost. That's not right. At this point, Xiao Tianquan suddenly thought of something. It stopped talking and stared at Shaolin Yu. Chapter 806. Although no one could answer this question at the moment, Shaolin Yu felt that he was most likely the fated person that Hong Jun spoke of. All of this could no longer be described as a coincidence. It was as if there was a pair of big hands in the unseen world that were teasing his fate. But if Hong Jun was the person who controlled his fate, why did he let him almost die in danger time and time again? He gave him countless opportunities but made him take risks out of desperation. How could he be sure that he would definitely reach this step today? If those dangers were tests that Hong Jun gave him, those tests were too much. Was he not afraid that he would accidentally kill him? Hong Jun had already gone to the so-called Ancient Star Road, and it seemed that the Ancient Star Road was incomparably dangerous. How could he have the time and energy to control his fate? Perhaps it was not Hong Jun who controlled his fate, but he just used his powerful divination ability to see everything about him? If it was not Hong Jun, then who was the strong person who controlled his fate? What was his purpose? Many questions flashed through Shaolin Yu's mind in an instant, but these questions could not be answered now. From Shaolin Yu's eyes, the celestial hound saw endless doubts. It knew that Shaolin Yu would ask it, so it simply said, "Don't look at me. There are many things that I don't know. Those powerful people have never seen me as a human. Of course, I am not a human. In their eyes, I am just an animal." Damn it, why do these words sound so awkward? It was indeed a little awkward. Linger could not help but laugh. How can this seal be broken? Shaolin Yu asked. It's very easy to break. The power of the seal has been weakening, and now it is almost exhausted. If it was in the past, not to mention that the strongest one among you was only in the Nirvana realm, even if an expert in the extreme star realm came here, he would definitely die. The celestial hound thought for a moment and continued, although the power of this formation is much, much weaker, I can't break it myself. I need help from an outsider. How can you help? Shaolin Yu asked. It's very simple. I just need to recognize a new master. The celestial hound scolded angrily, that old bastard Hong Jun is too overbearing and shameless. Not only did he seal me here, he even made my master remove our relationship. I have to recognize a new master before this seal can collapse on its own. Only someone at the peak of the extreme astral realm would be able to break through this damned sealing formation. That's a little too much, Shaolin Yu replied after a pause. Only you can help me with this matter. Although I've acknowledged you as my master, you are still a cultivator of our earth lineage. In order to obtain freedom, I can accept it. The howling celestial dog was very helpless, and then said firmly, however, although I've recognized you as my master, you can't expect me to listen to you. I'm incomparably loyal to my original master. Even if he doesn't want me, he's still my master, and always will be. I wouldn't dare to order you around, Shaolin Yu replied with a smile. The howling celestial dog was a very straightforward person. It didn't waste any more saliva and said, "Come, I'm ready." The conversation between Shaolin Yu and the howling celestial dog stunned Miling and Lord Yu. The other 5 cultivators also heard it clearly. At this moment, they all had complicated expressions on their faces, as if they didn't know what to do. It was obvious that this demonic beast called the howling celestial dog was very powerful. However, it was sealed here and couldn't use too much power. But if it wasn't sealed, then forget about snatching the extreme astral magnet. Even if it couldn't keep its life, it would have to depend on the other party. Although the cultivators outside couldn't hear the conversation inside, they could all see that the situation inside was too strange. The demonic beast that looked like a wolf and a dog seemed to be chatting happily with the young cultivator, so they didn't dare to enter at all. They could only wait outside and watch. After a moment of hesitation, the 5 cultivators inside decided to take their fates into their own hands. Therefore, after looking at each other, they made up their minds and stuck close to the wall, charging towards Xiaoling Yu and the other 3 cultivators. They had to stop Xiaoling Yu and the howling celestial dog from recognizing each other as its master. Even if it was dangerous, they had to bite the bullet. They could all see that the howling celestial dog couldn't touch the wall. However, just as they moved halfway, the howling celestial dog let out a wild roar. Its body shook, and the hall was filled with saber light, sword shadow, axe wind, whip dragon, and all the attacks seemed to be controlled and all rushed towards the 5 cultivators. I forgot to tell you. Although this array is sealing me, that old bastard Hong Jun didn't really want to seal me forever. He didn't want me to meet with any accidents here, so this array is still protecting me. The howling celestial dog looked at the 5 cultivators in disdain, then urged Xiaoling Yu, "Can you move faster, kid? Why are you dawdling?" I'm coming. Xiaoling Yu replied in surprise. First, she fused a wisp of her soul into a drop of blood essence, then sent the blood soul into the howling celestial dog's forehead. With the howling celestial dog's cooperation, the blood soul smoothly sank into the howling celestial dog's mind and merged into its soul. The master recognition was completed very quickly, and Xiaoling Yu immediately felt that she had an additional mental connection with the howling celestial dog. The moment the master recognition was completed, the 5 cultivators were killed, and the stone pillars in the hall began to collapse. Ha! I can finally see the light of day again. The howling celestial dog let out a proud laugh. Then, it opened its mouth and swallowed all 6 weapons into its stomach. At this moment, the restrictive light door had disappeared, but there was not even a shadow outside. The cultivators who were originally guarding outside all fled when they saw that the situation was not good. What are you looking at? These weapons are all very powerful. Your cultivation is too weak now. Even if I give them to you, you can't control them. They are all left behind by the old man Hong Jun to make up for me being sealed for so many years. They have nothing to do with you. The howling celestial dog spoke with conviction. It seemed that it did not intend to share the loot with everyone. However, it was already good enough that they were able to survive. At least they had obtained the star pole magnet. What else was there to be dissatisfied with? Even if they were not satisfied, who would dare to say no to the howling celestial dog? Are you sure this was not left to me by Hong Jun ancestor? After all, I am the fated person. I must have some important mission. These treasures may be left for me to defend myself. Xiaoling Yu said jokingly. You are too greedy. I have already recognized you as my master. You have the nerve to snatch the treasures from me? If you really want these treasures, you can destroy my soul with just a thought. The howling celestial dog said very shamelessly. Perhaps it was because it had been suppressed for too many years that the howling celestial dog was really bored. Or perhaps it did not want to discuss the 6 treasures with Xiaoling Yu anymore. After it finished speaking, it rushed out of the hall excitedly and then ran out of the cave. Xiaoling Yu and the other 3 also followed out of the cave and returned to the small island. Who knew that just as they came out of the cave, they saw hundreds of streams of light falling from the sky. The momentum was so strong that the whole island was trembling. Obviously, those cultivators were not satisfied. They gathered outside the cave and waited for Xiaoling Yu and the other 3 to come out so that they could give them a head-on attack. Fortunately, the howling celestial dog was the first to rush out. All the attacks were directed at it. In anger, it stood at the entrance of the cave and howled to the sky. Woof! The sound of a dog's bark could shake the heavens and the earth. It was Xiaoling Yu's first time experiencing it. Waves of powerful sound waves gushed out of the howling celestial dog's mouth like a hurricane. In an instant, they stopped the streams of light that were falling at extreme speed. Then, they went against the flow and swept up the streams of light, towards the countless cultivators floating in mid-air above the small island. Those cultivators who had gathered together were scared out of their wits. In an instant, they dispersed in a hubbub. However, the countless streams of light, under the control of the howling celestial dog, also quickly separated and chased after a cultivator. What evil creature dares to stir up trouble here? Suddenly, an old man in a cloth robe appeared in mid-air. With a wave of his sleeve, countless stars appeared. Countless stars gathered together, like the Milky Way of the 9 heavens. It flowed wantonly in the sky, dispersing the wind that the howling celestial dog had created. It was obvious that this old man was an elite of the extreme star realm. Your ancestors of 18 generations. I've just come out and you're already looking for trouble. The howling celestial dog was enraged. Its front hooves stomped on the back, and its body shot up from the ground like an arrow, charging towards the old man in midair. Just as the howling celestial dog rose into the air, the extreme star realm elites that had appeared in front of the Cyan Emperor's tombstone all arrived. They surrounded the howling celestial dog. The opponent had 6 extreme star realm elites, while the howling celestial dog was alone. However, the howling celestial dog was not afraid at all. It opened its mouth again. Not only did it spit out gusts of wind, but it also spat out the 6 powerful weapons. The howling celestial dog controlled the 6 weapons and fought against the 6 extreme star realm elites alone. It did not seem to be at a disadvantage at all. Perhaps because it was enjoying the fight, the howling celestial dog transmitted its voice to Shaoling Yu. You guys go back first. I'll have some fun first, and then I'll come find you guys. When an extreme star realm elite made a move, it could be said to be earth-shattering. The momentum was too strong. Shaoling Yu and the other 3 did not dare to stay for long. Although the howling celestial dog was not at a disadvantage, it obviously did not have the spare energy to take care of them. So, Shaoling Yu asked Master Yu to take out the blue boat, and then drove the boat out of the bewildering sea region at full speed. Shaoling Yu's group of 4 didn't dare to stay here for long. As for the other cultivators, they had long since fled for their lives. Just now, the howling celestial dog's display of strength had truly frightened them. At this moment, they no longer held any hopes of snatching the star pole magnet. Chapter 807. The cultivators that escaped from the Lost Islands were all panicking like stray dogs. The Star Realm experts had already been dispatched. They, who hadn't reached the Star Realm yet, only wanted to leave the inner sea of Gourd Bay as soon as possible. They couldn't afford to encounter the Star Realm experts. Under such circumstances, the blue boat that was cautiously moving 1,000 feet below the sea surface didn't encounter any experts except for the occasional attack from some sea beasts. The blue boat's speed in the deep sea was a lot slower than on the surface, so it took a full 10 years for the blue boat to reach the shore. Coincidentally, the Yun family's golden boat also reached the shore at this time. However, this wasn't the Yun family's boat that went to the Lost Islands. The person at the helm of this boat was the Yun family's young master, Yun Hai. Yun Hai was the eldest son of the Yun family's patriarch after all. He was the Yun family's direct descendant with the most hope of becoming the patriarch in the future. He naturally wouldn't follow the Yun family's experts and risk their lives in the Lost Islands. At this moment, he didn't know what was happening in the Lost Islands. When Yun Hai saw Shaoling Yu's group of 4, he immediately flew over with 6 experts. Among the 6 guards, there was a Nirvana Heart Realm expert. Master Yu, long time no see. Yun Hai seemed to be polite as he cupped his fist and greeted. Master Yu wasn't in the mood to talk to Yun Hai. He only nodded indifferently and responded with an N. Yun Hai didn't mind Master Yu's coldness. He turned to look at Shaoling Yu and said, "Oh, this coward also dares to leave the city?" The Yun family's guards laughed. Shaoling Yu glanced at Yun Hai without any expression as if she was looking at a dead person. If it wasn't for Master Yu accompanying you, a coward like you would never dare to take half a step out of Gourd Bay, right? I think you should beg Master Yu to take you away from Gourd Bay. Leave forever and never come back. With official Yu around, Yun Hai didn't dare to stop them. He just followed along and constantly mocked and humiliated Shaoling Yu. When they were close to the city gates, Shaoling Yu suddenly replied, "You're just like your so-called genius brother who died. You're asking for a beating. You're tired of living." Yun Hai sneered and replied, "If you're still a man, come out and fight with me." Of course, you might say that you just ascended not long ago, then I'll give you 1,000,000 years. After 1,000,000 years, let's fight again. How about that? Xiaoling Yu frowned and said, 1,000,000 years, in the blink of an eye. May I ask how many years young Master Yun has been cultivating? Yunhai shook his head and said, if you don't dare, then you don't dare. Don't find those useless reasons. No matter how many reasons you have, it won't change your nature as a coward. Ha ha. Xiaoling Yu suddenly laughed and said, since you're so interested, why don't I fulfill your wish? I don't need 1,000,000 years. After 1,000 years, I'll wait for you at the north gate of Gourd Bay. At that time, don't bring a bunch of Yun family's experts to protect you. 1,000 years? Great. After Yunhai agreed, he brought 6 Yun family's guards into the city. The 1,000-year battle between Xiaoling Yu and Yunhai quickly spread in Gourd Bay. The cultivators who had nothing to do for many years used this as a topic of discussion. However, after understanding the situation, almost all the cultivators were sure that if there was a battle 1,000 years later, Xiaoling Yu would definitely die miserably. That guy overestimated himself. Although Yunhai has just reached the realm of body puppet, he's still in the Nirvana realm. An immortality realm cultivator challenging a Nirvana realm cultivator is no different from courting death. Unless he can also reach the Nirvana realm within 1,000 years. However, he has just ascended for hundreds of years. It's impossible for him to reach the Nirvana realm within 1,000 years. He doesn't take his own life seriously. He's too impatient. Someone just provoked him, and he foolishly fought with his life. His realm is still too low. No matter how the cultivators in the city discussed, Xiaoling Yu didn't take it to heart at all. After returning to the house, he began to cultivate step by step. I say, Brother Xiao, you're too rash this time. A mere 1,000 years is really too short. Although Miling didn't want to boost the morale of others and diminish his own prestige, he couldn't help but speak his mind. What are you talking about? After 1,000 years, my husband will definitely beat that Yun family's eldest young master into a pig's head. Only when he's beaten into a pile of mud can I vent my anger. How can a firefly compete with the bright moon? He's just asking for humiliation. If it were up to me, we shouldn't wait 1,000 years. Let's fight to our heart's content right now. Xiaoling Yu's wives and friends all spoke out. Their positions were naturally very firm, and they were also full of confidence in Xiaoling Yu. Miling's face was gloomy, and he didn't know how to continue speaking. Brother me, you should go and cultivate. Although obtaining the astral magnet is a great opportunity, you can't slack off because of it. Xiaoling Yu patted Miling's shoulder, just like how Miling patted his shoulder in the past. Miling shrugged helplessly and then left sullenly. Husband, you should also cultivate. Although you'll definitely win, it's better to fight in your best condition. If you need anything, call us. His wives and friends then left. As for the steward, Lord Yu, after entering the city, he directly went to the Awakening God Tower and stayed in the house. Since he dared to agree to fight with Yunhai, Xiaoling Yu naturally had some confidence. Although 1,000 years was short, it was definitely enough for him to reach the peak of the late stage of the 10th Revolution chaotic creation realm, and this realm should be similar to the ordinary realm of the body puppet. The biggest advantage of a Nirvana realm cultivator was that they had extremely powerful Nirvana true fire, but the Nirvana true fire of a body puppet cultivator was not very powerful. Yunhai had just reached the body puppet realm, and he might not be able to defeat Xiaoling Yu. The reason Xiaoling Yu set the battle 1,000 years later was that he was confident that he could reach the peak of the late stage of the chaotic creation realm within 1,000 years. Secondly, he didn't want to give Yunhai too much time to familiarize himself with his realm. Xiaoling Yu knew his own situation. He had yet to find the clue of the 11th Revolution chaotic creation realm. If the time was right, 1,000 years would be enough for him to break through. If the time was not right, he might not be able to break through even after 1,000,000 years or even endless years. Therefore, comparatively speaking, a battle 1,000 years later was the most reliable. If he waited for a long time and didn't break through, Yunhai might advance from the body puppet realm to the nirvana heart realm or even the nirvana soul realm, and he would have even less hope of winning. Yunhai had repeatedly humiliated him, and it was time to teach him a lesson. In the past, Shaolin Yu might have been afraid of the Yun family's overall strength, but now that he had Xiao Tianquan, he didn't need to be afraid of the Yun family. Of course, Shaolin Yu still had a powerful killing move, and it was also an important reason why he dared to fight a body puppet expert. Shaolin Yu did not know when the howling celestial dog would come looking for him, so he did not wait around. He took out the moon crystals that he had purchased from Floating Cloud City, as well as the yang crystals that he had earned from selling prescriptions, and began to refine his chaos origin power. Perhaps he knew that Shaolin Yu needed time to cultivate, so Official Yu helped him adjust his shift time so that he didn't have to be on duty at the Awakening God Tower. In less than 200 years, Shaolin Yu's cultivation level had reached the peak of the late-stage chaos creation realm. Whether it was his body or his chaos nascent soul, they couldn't accept any more chaos origin force, so he stopped. Xiao Tianquan still hadn't returned, and since he had nothing to do, Shaolin Yu took out a few life pearls of body puppet beasts to absorb the realm's comprehension within. Now, the life pearls of immortal realm beasts were completely useless to Shaolin Yu. However, the life pearls of nirvana realm beasts contained the understanding of the natural laws of heaven and earth, which could help Shaolin Yu slowly improve the realm of his soul. Shaolin Yu felt that perhaps when his soul realm was high enough, he would be able to find the opportunity to create the chaotic 11th transformation. Even if he couldn't find that opportunity, absorbing the life pearls of nirvana realm beasts would allow him to at least not be at a disadvantage when facing Yunhai. Ordinary cultivators wouldn't dare to absorb the life pearls of demonic beasts, let alone absorb the life pearls of nirvana realm beasts like Shaolin Yu. This was also one of Shaolin Yu's greatest advantages. After returning from the Lost Islands for 500 years, Xiao Tianquan finally arrived at Gourd Island. One night, it directly leaped over the city walls of Gourd City and landed in front of Shaolin Yu's house through telepathy with Shaolin Yu. Since Xiao Tianquan could sense Shaolin Yu's location, Shaolin Yu could naturally sense its location as well. As soon as it landed, Shaolin Yu opened the courtyard door for it. In the courtyard, Xiao Tianquan laid down. Under the bright moonlight, Shaolin Yu saw that a large section of its tail was missing. "Senior, you seem to have suffered a great loss." Shaolin Yu said, "Senior, you've been sealed for many years, and you fought against 6 people alone. You were too careless." Xiao Tianquan snorted coldly and said unhappily, "If I hadn't been sealed for so many years, I could have blown those 6 people to death with just a breath. However, the 6 of them weren't the ones who hurt me. With their abilities, they can't hurt me." "Then who hurt you?" Shaolin Yu asked curiously. "It was the Sword Ancestor's first disciple, Jian Yi," Xiao Tianquan said. Hearing the words Sword Ancestor, Shaolin Yu could not help but think of Saber 9. Saber 9 was the Sword Ancestor's 9th disciple, and he had quite a bit of enmity with Shaolin Yu on Skirich Holy Island. The Sword Ancestor's disciples are all astral extremity experts? Shaolin Yu asked in surprise. Jian Yi has followed the Sword Ancestor for many years. What's so strange about him being an astral extremity expert? Moreover, he's not only an astral extremity expert, but also a very powerful one. As for the Sword Ancestor, he is an existence that can easily kill me. Even among all the experts on Earth, the number of people who can compete with the Sword Ancestor can be counted with one hand, Xiao Tianquan said with a calm expression. Did the Sword Ancestor also go to the Ancient Star Road? Shaolin Yu asked again. Chapter 808. Not bad. Shaolin Yu heaved a sigh of relief. Why? Do you have a grudge against the Sword Ancestor? Xiao Tianquan asked. I have no grudge against the Sword Ancestor, but when I was in the lower realm, I had some grudges with his 9th disciple. Shaolin Yu replied. Then you have to be careful. Although the Sword Ancestor went to the ancient starry sky path, most of his disciples are astral extreme realm experts, and they should all be in the Immortals' mainland now. Xiao Tianquan said worriedly, Take that sword one for example. Even if I meet him, I can only run away. Not to mention that I have been sealed for many years. Even if I was in my peak state, I can't beat that sword one. It can even be said that I can't deal with the first 3 disciples of the sword ancestor. Moreover, the sword ancestor's lineage is the leader of the immortals' mainland. There are countless sword cultivators around them. You should know that the attack power of a sword cultivator is very terrifying. Xiaoling Yu smiled and said, I won't foolishly fight with them. Even if I want to fight with them, I have to be strong enough. Xiao Tianquan nodded and said, since you are so cautious, I can leave without worry. Ah. Xiaoling Yu was a little surprised and asked, Senior, you are leaving? Xiao Tianquan said, yes, they asked me to stay, not to let me enjoy the immortals' world, and not to wait for a fated person like you. There are some other things that they need me to do. Xiaoling Yu frowned and asked, then when will Senior come back? Xiao Tianquan thought for a moment and replied, it depends on whether the matter is done smoothly or not. If it is successful, I will be back in a few 100,000 years. If it is not successful, I might never come back. Xiaoling Yu's heart sank and said, then why did Hongjun ancestor ask you to wait for a fated person? Xiao Tianquan smiled and said, don't worry, I haven't finished my words. Hongjun ancestor asked me to wait for you to pass on a message. Xiaoling Yu asked, what message? Xiao Tianquan followed and said, it's very simple, there are only 9 words in this sentence. Break in nirvana. Extreme star entering samsara. Xiaoling Yu was stunned and said, it's clearly 10 words. Xiao Tianquan was slightly embarrassed and said, it doesn't matter how many words there are. Anyway, I've already delivered the message. As for what it means, you can figure it out yourself. It's getting late. Sword one should be here soon. I have to go. After saying that, Xiao Tianquan rushed out of the courtyard and disappeared into the night sky of Gourd City. Nirvana after breaking through. This should be the path and direction for me to continue my cultivation. What does extreme star entering samsara mean? Could it be a nirvana realm technique to reach the extreme star realm? Or is it a technique after Xingji? Just as Xiaoling Yu closed the courtyard door and was quietly pondering under a big tree in the courtyard, an incomparably tyrannical divine sense suddenly came crashing down in an unbridled manner. However, it only lasted for an instant before disappearing without a trace. Even though the courtyard was set up with a very powerful restriction formation to isolate the cultivator's divine sense, that divine sense completely ignored the restriction in the courtyard. When that divine sense swept past, all the cultivators in the courtyard felt their souls tremble and their hair stand on end. All the cultivators in Gourd City were awakened at this moment, but they all held their breaths and did not dare to move. Fortunately, that divine sense disappeared very quickly. If it had been shrouded for a long time, some of the weaker cultivators would have had a mental breakdown. So arrogant, it must be an expert of the extreme star realm. Could it be that sword one? Xiaoling Yu also stood in place for a long time before he suddenly came back to his senses. He shook his head and thought to himself. When he sat down on a stone bench in the courtyard again, he was surprised to see a long sword leaning against a big tree beside him. This long sword was one of the 6 magic treasures that sealed the Howling Celestial Dog. It was probably left behind on purpose when the Howling Celestial Dog left. The long sword was more than 4 feet long. The hilt was 1 foot long, and the blade was 4 fingers wide. The entire body seemed to be made of bronze. It was simple and unadorned, and it looked very heavy. Xiaoling Yu immediately stood up and grabbed the hilt. He exerted a little force and prepared to hold the long sword horizontally to take a closer look. To his surprise, even though he was extremely strong now and had always been good at physical strength, the long sword did not move at all when he exerted a little force. He gradually increased his strength until he used up all his strength. Only then did he hold the long sword horizontally. However, it was not a problem to hold up the long sword and take a closer look. Although his strength was consumed quickly, he could still hold on for a while. However, it was impossible for him to wave this long sword to his heart's content. At least, he did not have the ability to do so now. After all, the howling celestial dog was an expert of the extreme star realm. It could wave the long sword at will, but it did not mean that Xiaoling Yu could do the same. After taking a closer look, Xiaoling Yu saw two words on the hilt of the ancient long sword. Xian Yuan. This was the sword of the Yellow Emperor, Xian Yuan, an ancient almighty on earth, the Xian Yuan sword. In an instant, Xiaoling Yu's state of mind fluctuated, and his face showed some excitement. Let's try to see if it can recognize a master. Maybe after it recognizes a master, I can wave it at will. Xiaoling Yu dripped a drop of blood essence on the Xian Yuan sword. However, the drop of blood essence rolled down the sword and was not absorbed by the Xian Yuan sword. This meant that the method of dripping blood to recognize a master would not work, or the Xian Yuan sword already had a master. Since the Xian Yuan sword has been left behind, it probably has not recognized a master. I'll try another method. Xiaoling Yu quickly thought of the method he used to make the chaos treasure recognize a master, so he began to communicate with the Xian Yuan sword with his mind. At first, the Xian Yuan sword did not react at all. However, after 100 breaths, the Xian Yuan sword suddenly trembled slightly, and a terrifying sword intent instantly enveloped the entire house. However, this sword intent was very subtle and did not exert much attack power. It only made the entire house tremble for a while before slowly dissipating. What's going on? Did the Yun family send someone again? His wives and friends came out of their rooms one after another, all looking very nervous. It's okay, it's okay. You all go back and continue to cultivate. I was the one practicing the sword just now. Xiaoling Yu quickly responded. Husband, your sword looks so special. Why haven't I seen it before? Jiang Lanchang's eyes were sharp. She saw the Xian Yuan sword and asked aloud. Ha, it's just an ordinary sword. Xiaoling Yu smiled perfunctorily. It does look quite ordinary. After Jiang Lanchang responded, she turned around and went back to her room. Linger and Meiling looked at the Xian Yuan sword a few more times, but they did not say anything. After his wives and friends returned to their rooms, Xiaoling Yu looked at the Xian Yuan sword again. Just now, he had already felt the spirituality of the Xian Yuan sword, and the fluctuation of sword intent released by the Xian Yuan sword enveloped his whole body just now, as if it was examining him. He did not know if it was because Xiaoling Yu's opportunity had arrived, or because he contained the bloodline of the Yellow Emperor in his body. In short, after the fluctuation of sword intent disappeared, he felt that his connection with the Xian Yuan sword had become even closer. He intuitively felt that he had been recognized by the Xian Yuan sword. However, what made Xiaoling Yu depressed was that even though he had been recognized by the Xian Yuan sword, this simple long sword still seemed very heavy. If he wanted to use it freely in his hands, he had to improve his strength by a lot first. There were two ways to improve one's strength. One was to improve one's body quality, and the other was to improve one's cultivation. It was not easy to improve one's body quality. Whether it was the method of body and soul transformation or the method of body refinement, Xiaoling Yu was not prepared at all. As for improving one's cultivation, it could only be broken through to the chaotic nirvana realm. How to reach the chaotic nirvana realm? Although he had the guidance of Hong Jun ancestor, the words break and nirvana were too mysterious. He still had to calm down and comprehend it. After putting away the Xian Yuan sword for the time being, Xiaoling Yu returned to his quiet room and began to think hard. Break in nirvana realm means break and then establish. Does this mean that I have to break everything I have obtained before and then achieve nirvana? No, this is too straightforward. It shouldn't mean that. In the past, every time I made a big breakthrough, my chaotic nascent soul had a process of breaking and then establishing itself. What does this break in nirvana realm mean? Ordinary cultivators advance from the ninth heaven of longevity realm to the body puppet realm. They first condense their true fire into nirvana true fire, and then use the power of nirvana true fire to temper their bodies. Finally, they reach the body puppet realm. It's a bit like the rebirth of the super divine beast fire phoenix. I cultivate the power of chaos, and my body is the chaotic true fire. Now the power of my chaotic true fire is not worse than that of the body puppet realm. My body quality is not weaker than that of the body puppet realm. In fact, I am already comparable to that of the body puppet realm. In this way, the breakthrough method of ordinary cultivators is not suitable for me, and there is nothing to learn. In the remaining 500 years, Shaolin Yu had been thinking hard. Occasionally, he would come out to accompany his wife and friends. However, even with the advice of his wife and friends, he had never figured out what break in Nirvana realm meant. The only thing worth being happy about was that Qing Xian and Miaoing, who were pregnant, had already nurtured their babies to the immortal realm. It wouldn't be long before they could give birth. In the past, the two of them delayed the delivery because they didn't want their children to suffer the pain of cultivation and the immortal tribulation in the lower realm. After they arrived at the immortal realm, their cultivation was too weak. Naturally, they needed some time to improve their strength and transfer their cultivation to their children. 1,000 years had passed. Shaolin Yu, accompanied by his relatives and friends, as well as the manager of the Awakening God Tower, arrived outside the north gate of Gourd City. He stood in midair and waited for Yunhai's arrival. After receiving the news, countless cultivators of Gourd City swarmed over. Even the city lord mansion sent a large number of guards to guard the north gate. Yunhai arrived half an hour later. Naturally, many cultivators of the Yun family followed behind him. His father, the master of the Yun family, naturally wouldn't be absent. Chapter 809. Yunhai looked very confident in front of thousands of cultivators. Just now, a Nirvana Soul Realm cultivator from the Yun family told him that although he couldn't see through Shaolin Yu's cultivation, he was sure that Shaolin Yu hadn't reached the Nirvana realm yet. His opponent was still at the Immortal realm. As someone at the Immortal realm, Yunhai had nothing to worry about. However, Yunhai also felt that it was a bit strange. Didn't his opponent know that there was a huge gap between the Immortal realm and the Nirvana realm? Was his opponent courting death today? Back then, it was precisely because Yunma's mouth was too cheap that he attracted a fatal disaster. As expected of brothers, your mouths are equally cheap, Shaolin Yu retorted. Hearing Shaolin Yu's words, not only Yunhai, but almost all the members of the Yun family narrowed their eyes. If it wasn't for the fact that there were countless cultivators watching and that this was a one-on-one duel, the members of the Yun family would have swarmed up and skinned Shaolin Yu for insulting their Yun family. Fight! Fight! What are you waiting for? Hurry up and start! The audience became impatient and began to shout loudly. Today is the day you die! Yunhai shouted. His aura began to surge and a silver flaming orange appeared in his palm. We'll only know who lives and who dies after we fight. Shaolin Yu didn't frantically increase his aura. Instead, the wings of speed appeared behind him. With a flash of silver light, Shaolin Yu's body, driven by the wings of extreme speed, whizzed out like a bolt of silver lightning. In an instant, he arrived in front of Yunhai and threw a punch at Yunhai's face. He's so fast? Yunhai's heart trembled, but his reaction wasn't slow. With another shout, the silver flaming orange in his palm flashed and wrapped around his entire palm. Turning his palm into a fist, Yunhai also punched out. Boom! First, there were two flashes of fire, followed by a series of explosions. Shaolin Yu and Yunhai were both sent flying far away. Shaolin Yu retreated about 200 feet, while Yunhai retreated about 300 feet. His strength seems to be very strong as well. Yunhai and the rest of the Yun family looked gloomy. They never thought that an immortal-level cultivator would have the speed and strength of an immortal-level cultivator. It seemed like the other party didn't come here to court death, but only dared to accept the challenge because he had enough strength. The audience was stunned at first, and then burst into cheers. They were also secretly shocked. A cultivator who had just ascended for less than 2,000 years could actually fight a powerhouse in the realm of puppets. This was too unbelievable. After stabilizing himself, Yunhai used his divine will to lock onto Shaolin Yu and unleashed his Nirvana true flame. Compared to immortal-level cultivators, the biggest advantage of a Nirvana True Flame was the Nirvana True Flame. Ordinary immortal-level cultivators couldn't resist its power at all. The silver Nirvana True Flame turned into a fire arrow and shot toward Shaolin Yu. Because of the other party's divine will, Shaolin Yu couldn't dodge it and could only take it head-on. With a thought, the primal chaos primordial flame, which carried a bit of white radiance, turned into a fire snake and collided with the silver fire arrow. What surprised everyone was that after the two fiery lights collided, they exploded at the same time. It was as if they were evenly matched. The true flame of an immortal-level cultivator was actually not weaker than the Nirvana True Flame. For countless years, the iron law of the world of immortals had been broken yet again. It was said that even if an immortal-level cultivator reached the ninth heaven, it was impossible to defeat an immortal-level cultivator. It was said that immortal-level cultivators couldn't resist the Nirvana True Flame of an immortal-level cultivator. Seeing the performance of the primal chaos True Flame, Yunhai and the Yun family's gloomy faces became serious again. Although the opponent wasn't in the Nirvana realm, he had the strength of an immortal-level cultivator. It wouldn't be easy for Yunhai to defeat him. The audience was really excited. They thought that this was a duel without any suspense, but now it seemed that this wasn't the case. Everyone didn't know that the peak of the late-stage 10th Revolution chaotic creation realm was only stronger than an immortal-level cultivator. However, Yunhai and the Yun family felt that if Shaolin Yu dared to fight, he was either courting death or had some powerful Dharma treasure. Therefore, Yunhai prepared many trump cards for himself. Now that he wanted to defeat his opponent, it was time to take out his trump cards. Yunhai held a strange-looking ghost head saber in his hand, and his expression became ferocious. "Go to hell!" Yunhai shouted. The ghost head saber in his hand slashed at Shaolin Yu from hundreds of feet away. The ghost head saber was really magical. When it slashed, it instantly expanded. Moreover, there was a huge ghost head behind the saber. Shaolin Yu's expression was still calm. He pushed up with one palm, and a Dharma seal of the chaotic yin-yang fish blasted on the expanding ghost head saber. The ghost head saber fell with the force of a thunderbolt, but its position was changed by the chaotic seal. It slashed into the void 30 feet away from Shaolin Yu. The ghost head behind the saber was also smashed into pieces by the chaotic seal. Then, Shaolin Yu began to move rapidly, and he quickly sent the special materials into the void one by one. It was obvious that he was going to set up a formation. Back then, he had relied on the formation to kill Yun Mo. If he wanted to win today, he would have to rely on the power of the formation. Of course, Yunhai wouldn't let Shaolin Yu set up the formation so easily. He kept waving the ghost head saber and chased after Shaolin Yu. He also swept the surrounding space fiercely and domineeringly, trying to make it difficult for the formation of the formation base. Shaolin Yu kept blasting out the chaotic seal. The chaotic seal condensed from the chaotic force was extremely powerful. It allowed him to easily dissolve the ghost head saber's attacks. Yunhai felt that he couldn't go on like this. He put away the ghost head saber and used another trump card. 6 puppets appeared beside Yunhai. These 6 puppets were all dressed in jet black iron armor. They were all holding broadswords and their bodies were burning with golden flames. The Nirvana realm cultivators could see that the golden flames on the 6 puppets were Nirvana True Fire. Furthermore, it was much more powerful than the silver Nirvana True Fire on Yunhai's body. Isn't this a one-on-one duel? Why did this guy ask for help? Jiang Lanchang said angrily. Puppets aren't cultivators. They can't be considered as helpers. However, Yunhai is already lost by using 6 puppets whose strength is comparable to Nirvana realm cultivators, Lord Yu said while shaking his head. Many spectators were also jeering. Some said that Yunhai was cheating. Some said that Yunhai had no backbone. Some even said that Yunhai was a coward. The Yun family felt their faces burning as if they had been mercilessly slapped. However, it was fine as long as they could win. There was no rule that prohibited the use of puppets in a duel. With 6 powerful puppets involved, even if Shaolin Yu set up a formation, it would be difficult for him to defeat Yunhai. He might even be killed by the 6 puppets. Xiaoling Yu's expression finally turned ugly. Seeing that the 6 puppets were already charging towards him, he sneered. Then, with a thought, the blood crystals hidden in his muscles, bones, and flesh were instantly detonated. Waves of ferocious aura swept out from his body. The powerful aura that erupted in an instant actually made it difficult for the 6 puppets to approach him. Then, under everyone's shocked gaze, Xiaoling Yu's body began to rapidly expand. In the span of 2 breaths, Xiaoling Yu disappeared and was replaced by a huge golden dragon that appeared out of nowhere. Those who knew Xiaoling Yu knew that he had activated the formless giant demon art. Those who didn't know were dumbfounded. Xiaoling Yu's strength was already comparable to the body puppet realm. After activating the formless giant demon art, his strength soared by countless times. However, judging from the powerful aura of the huge dragon, his strength was even more powerful than a Nirvana Heart Realm expert. Yunhai and the Yun family's experts' eyelids trembled. Under the powerful aura of the huge dragon, Yunhai's legs were even trembling. Roar! The huge dragon roared and a dragon claw came crashing down from the sky. The dragon claw came crashing down at an extremely fast speed. Before Yunhai could react, his 6 puppets were smashed to the ground from the sky. The 6 puppets were like 6 meteorites as they smashed into the ground, creating 6 large pits. Then, the huge dragon used its powerful aura to seal off the entire battlefield. After locking onto Yunhai, it smashed down again. Yunhai was shocked. In front of this huge dragon, he actually felt powerless. When the dragon claw came crashing down on his head, he panicked and used his Nirvana True Fire and power to set up a defensive barrier. When the dragon claw smashed down on Yunhai's head, Yunhai's defensive barrier was instantly shattered. His body, like his 6 puppets, was mercilessly smashed into the hard soil at the city gate. Yunhai quickly climbed out of the large pit he created. However, his face was pale and blood was flowing out from the corner of his mouth. Before he could fly to the battlefield in the sky, the dragon claw came crashing down on his head and his body returned to the large pit. It was a complete one-sided trampling. Before the battle, everyone thought that it would be a one-sided trampling. However, no one expected that the one being trampled would be Yunhai. After being smashed a few times, Yunhai was already seriously injured. He shouted in fear, "I admit defeat." Unfortunately, as soon as he uttered the words, a dragon fist the size of a house came crashing down once again. Stop! The Yun family's patriarch couldn't watch any longer. He, who was at the Nirvana Soul Realm, flew to his eldest son's side and released his Nirvana Soul Realm aura to meet the dragon fist. Boom! The dragon fist was knocked back, and the huge dragon was even sent flying far away by the huge force. A Nirvana Soul Realm expert was much stronger than Xiaoling Yu. Xiaoling Yu, who had used a secret technique to forcefully increase his strength, couldn't face a Nirvana Soul Realm expert at all. After being hit by a Nirvana Soul Realm expert, the formless giant demon art immediately stopped. Xiaoling Yu then revealed his original form. His face was also pale and his body was very weak. Official Yu, Myling, and Xiaoling Yu's relatives and friends all flew to Xiaoling Yu's side. The Yun family's experts also approached their patriarch. Chapter 8:10. Isn't this a life and death duel? Why? Does the Yun family want to break the rules? Lord Yu, the manager of the Awakening God Tower, sneered at the Yun family. Yunhai has already admitted defeat, the Yun family head said with a gloomy expression. What a joke. That was a life and death duel. The Yun family lost, so you all rushed forward. Your skin is thicker than the city walls. Jiang Lanchang had always been a straightforward person. He spoke whatever came to his mind and didn't care if the other party could take it or not. The Yun family was furious, but they were in the wrong, so they could only remain silent. There were countless cultivators from Gourd Island at the city gate. Even the city lord and the city guard commander had come to watch the duel. The Yun family's experts naturally didn't dare to act recklessly in front of so many cultivators. The happiest one wasn't Xiaoling Yu, who had one, but the Sang family. The cultivators who had been leading the crowd were from the Sang family. They were most happy to see the Yun family being slapped in the face. The louder and more painful the slap, the better. The Yun family didn't expect this outcome. In their opinion, even if Yun Hai couldn't win easily, he shouldn't have lost so thoroughly. After all, Yun Hai's opponent was only an immortal realm cultivator. If you're willing to bet, then you should admit defeat. The Yun family can't afford to lose. Yun Hai, go die. Be a man with integrity. He can't even beat an immortal realm cultivator. Yun Hai is wasting resources by living. He's a disgrace to the Yun family. Xiaoling Yu and the others didn't need to scold him. The surrounding spectators had already started scolding under the Sang family's instigation. Yun Hai, who was seriously injured and had just admitted defeat, really had the urge to die. It was one thing for him to lose face, but now, even the entire Yun family had been humiliated. He, who originally had the highest chance of obtaining the position of patriarch, knew that his father would definitely not pass the position of patriarch to him. Even if it was given to him, how could he have the face to sit in that position? What could he use to intimidate the other Yun family members and the cultivators of Gourd Island? However, even an ant would struggle to survive. A bad life was better than a good death. Yun Hai naturally wouldn't die generously just because of the other cultivators' curses. However, from then on, he would no longer have the face to appear on the streets of Gourd City. His father probably wouldn't allow him to go out and embarrass himself either. Today, the Yun family is willing to take out 30 million yang crystals to redeem Yun Hai's life. What do you think, Xiao Daoyu? Patriarch Yun said to Xiaoling Yu. Who wants your yang crystals? Although we're poor with backbone. Although your Yun family is rich, each and every one of you is shameless. Jiang Lanchang scolded mercilessly. The audience started to jeer again. The sound of ridicule surged like a tide. Ha, if I can get 30 million yang crystals, then it's not in vain for me to risk my life here, alright. To everyone's surprise, Xiaoling Yu agreed to the other party's proposal. In fact, even if she didn't agree, there were so many experts of the Yun family present. They wouldn't just stand by and watch Yun Hai be killed. The cultivators on Xiaoling Yu's side also didn't dare to force their way into the Yun family's team. The reason why Patriarch Yun proposed to use yang crystals to redeem Yun Hai's life was just to give them a way out. Then, Patriarch Yun threw a storage bag to Xiaoling Yu. Then, with an ashen face, he led the Yun family members into the city under the ridicule and humiliation of countless cultivators of Gourd City. Just now, Patriarch Yun really wanted to lead the Yun family's experts to charge forward and kill Xiaoling Yu and the others. However, he wasn't that impulsive. He knew that the city lord and the city guard commander wouldn't allow such a thing to happen. They also didn't dare to offend the Awakening Tower too much. After all, the Awakening Tower wasn't only located in Gourd City. Their influence was spread throughout the immortal realm. If one of the big shots of the Awakening Tower attacked the Yun family because of this, the Yun family would be annihilated in an instant. Xiaoling Yu had used up a lot of energy after using the formless gigantic demon art to achieve victory. He was very weak at the moment. He didn't stay outside the city. Accompanied by his friends and family, he immediately returned to his own house. The spectating cultivators didn't hesitate to give Xiaoling Yu enthusiastic applause and praise. Defeating the strong with the weak was always worthy of respect. For countless years, the Yun family had been tyrannical on Gourd Island. It was like a huge mountain pressing down on everyone's heart. Now that the Yun family had suffered such a huge loss, many cultivators might be afraid of offending the Yun family. They didn't say anything, but they were secretly happy. 30 million yang crystals was nothing to the wealthy Yun family. However, the Yun family would definitely keep a low profile for a period of time in the future. Their reputation would also hit rock bottom. However, the humiliation they suffered today was bound to make the Yun family hate Xiaoling Yu even more. No one would believe that they would give up their revenge on Xiaoling Yu. Xiaoling Yu wasn't afraid of the Yun family's revenge. After returning to his house, he directly went into seclusion to replenish his energy. Then, he continued to study the cultivation method of chaotic nirvana. The victory of this duel was within his expectations. Naturally, he wouldn't be complacent because of it. In fact, during the duel, he could have used the destruction Heavenly Eye to kill Yunhai. However, he was worried that the experts of the Yun family would kill him on the spot. Therefore, he gave up that plan. In his opinion, as long as Yunhai was a man with a bit of courage, he should be living a life worse than death now. As long as he reached the 11th cycle chaotic nirvana realm, the Yun family would be nothing to be afraid of. Not long after Xiaolingyu recovered, Miaoying gave birth to a son for him. He named his first son Xiaohong. As soon as Xiaohong was born, he was already at the second heaven of longevity realm. He looked as cute as a porcelain doll. Less than half a year after Xiaohong was born, Qing Xian gave birth to a daughter for Xiaolingyu. Xiaolingyu named her Xiaoanai. Xiaoanai was also at the second heaven of longevity realm. She looked as delicate and pretty as her mother, Qing Xian. Although Xiaohong and Xiaoanai were at the second celestial layer of longevity realm, they didn't have the slightest bit of experience. They also didn't have the slightest bit of combat experience, nor did they take the initiative to cultivate. Thus, they actually didn't have any combat strength. Now that he was also a father, Xiaolingyu was happy, but he also sighed in his heart. Seeing Xiaohong and Xiaoni's cute appearance, Jiang Lanchang, Anya, Jiang Lanyue, and Yueru were a little envious. Jiang Lanchang even bluntly asked Xiaolingyu to give her a baby as soon as possible. Only Linger was as quiet as ever. Linger was not in a hurry to have a child. What was more important for her now was to improve her strength. However, she was too special. If she wanted to improve, she could only rely on swallowing phantom spirits. But after looking through countless jade slips, she couldn't find any information about phantom spirits in the immortal realm. Unable to resist the pressure of his wives, Xiaolingyu lived a very hard life. Except for Linger, the other 4 wives all became pregnant with his children under his hard work. He could only sigh. It was really not easy to support such a big family. In the blink of an eye, another 100 years passed. Xiaohong and Xiaoanai now looked like 3 or 4 years old children. They surrounded Xiaolingyu all day long, not giving Xiaolingyu a chance to cultivate alone. Father, why are there stars in the sky? Father, why are we alive? Father, can you pick a few stars and put them on my clothes? Father, Mother said that you are the most powerful person in the world. Is there someone more powerful than you in the world? Of course, he would dote on his own children. Xiaolingyu was tormented by his children to the point of having a headache. In the face of his children's strange questions and wonderful ideas, he realized that his knowledge was really not that good. Miaoling and Qing Xian, on the other hand, had been watching Xiaolingyu's embarrassment from the side and secretly laughing. Xiaolingyu didn't allow his children to cultivate the 9 revolution chaos formula like him because this path of cultivation was too dangerous. He only allowed his children to cultivate ordinary cultivation methods. This might cause his children to become mediocre, but wasn't mediocrity also a kind of happiness? What made him feel helpless was that Qing Xian and Miaoling had told their children too much about their father's heroic deeds, which had planted the seed of wanting to become a powerful warrior in their young hearts. The most important thing was that when these 2 children cultivated, they would always modify their own cultivation methods into a mess. If it wasn't for Xiaolingyu's constant supervision, they would have lost their lives not long after they started cultivating. Children were sometimes very timid, but sometimes they were extraordinarily courageous. Their curiosity was too strong, so they often caused some unexpected situations. Every time an accident happened, Xiaolingyu had no choice but to destroy his children's original cultivation methods and let them cultivate again. However, he gradually gained some inspiration from his 2 children. Destroy and then establish. Does it mean that I have to destroy everything? But after all, I have my current cultivation. It's not difficult to destroy everything, but the 9 revolutions chaos formula has been deeply implanted in my soul. How can I break its influence on me? I'm not like these two children. They can destroy and establish as they wish. After all, they haven't cultivated for long and have a lot of plasticity. What's the difference between me and these two children? Could it be that the content of their soul's memory is very little? Or is it that they are just a piece of white paper, so they can scribble on it at will? Xiaolingyu felt that he seemed to have gradually grasped something. He continued to deduce according to his own ideas. In the end, Xiaolingyu came to an unbelievable and unacceptable result. That was, his nirvana should be built on the basis of forgetting everything. Only by destroying everything, could he be like his children, with strong creativity, and achieve the effect of nirvana rebirth. This seemingly absurd result of deduction seemed to be very reasonable, and could also correspond to the guidance of Hongjun ancestor. But if he really tried it like this, the price would be too high, and there would be great danger. In fact, it was very simple to forget everything in the past. He just needed to erase his own soul's memory. Chapter 8:11. After thinking for a while, Xiaolingyu finally decided to give it a try. However, he invited Anya into his room and said, "I've already opened up my mind. Copy my soul memory." Anya was very surprised and asked in disbelief, "Why?" Xiaolingyu said, "I've reached a bottleneck because of my cultivation. This is the only way I can find the opportunity to break through." Anya frowned and said, "What sort of technique is that? You're like a newborn child without your memories. You've completely lost all your past experience in cultivation, so how could you possibly break through?" Xiaolingyu smiled bitterly and said, "This is just a guess of mine. Although I might not succeed, I have to try before I am satisfied. Even if I can't break through, you can just return my soul memories." Anya was still worried and said, "The disappearance of your soul memory will also make your current cultivation level drop to 0. I may be able to return the contents of your soul memory to you, but your cultivation level is much higher than mine. I can't copy the contents of your cultivation level. If you don't break through, your cultivation level will drop a lot. If your cultivation level drops too much, I'm afraid you won't be able to control your cultivation level. You might even explode and die. You should think about it again. It's not worth taking such a big risk for cultivation, right? What if something happens to you? What will happen to the whole family?" Xiaolingyu shook his head and said, "I've been thinking about this problem for a long time. When you copy my soul memories, I will first imprison my own yuanying. This way, there won't be the danger of my body exploding from my power. If I can't break through this time, I'll just waste some time to recover my cultivation level and then release the imprison on my nascent soul." Anya didn't understand Xiaolingyu's current situation, so she didn't know how to persuade him. She nodded and said, "All right. You've always been lucky. You should be fine this time." After Anya copied his soul memory, Xiaolingyu sealed his nascent soul and then cleared his soul memory without hesitation. The moment he cleared his memories, he inevitably fell into a coma. His consciousness was gone, and his memories were empty. He fell into a deep sleep, but it seemed like he would never wake up. This was all part of Xiaolingyu's plan. After he fell into a coma for a few days, Anya, who was guarding him, would do her best to activate his golden soul pearl. After all, Anya's cultivation wasn't high. Even if she used all of her strength, she wouldn't be able to cause any damage to Xiaolingyu's golden soul pearl. Shaking it a little was already the most she could do. After attacking for nearly 4 hours, Anya finally woke Xiaolingyu up. After waking up, Xiaolingyu was in a daze. He had forgotten everything and looked at Anya expressionlessly. He was lying on the bed in a daze, not moving at all. Without his memories, he naturally lost his ability to speak. His mind was blank. He didn't know anything, and he didn't know what to do. This situation was expected. Anya helped him sit up straight and taught him as if he was a newborn. Although he had lost his soul memories, his soul was still very strong. His ability to accept knowledge was very strong, and his learning speed was very fast, just like his two children. After Xiaolingyu mastered his ability to speak, Anya briefly introduced him. Then, she gathered his friends and family and introduced them one by one. Is there something wrong with this guy's brain? How can he think of such a method? Jiang Lanchang said angrily after he understood the situation. Maybe it's because of all the things that happened in the past that limited his thinking and hindered his progress. That's why he came up with this plan. Miaoling was very calm. But he can't forget all of us. Jiang Lanchang was still very unhappy. We have to understand and support him. Qing Xin said with a smile. Father, are you addicted to crippling me and brother Xiao Hong's cultivation? This time, you might as well cripple yourself too. Xiao and I said with a smile. In the following days, Xiao Lingyu's wives took turns to accompany him. However, he preferred to interact with Xiao Hong and Xiao and I. He was clearly the father of these two children, but he acted as if he was also a child. In order to help him cultivate, Anya only taught him some necessary knowledge. The knowledge that Xiao Lingyu had now was not much more than that of his two children. Because of Xiao Lingyu's special situation, his relatives and friends naturally did not go out to make trouble for him. Instead, they all teased him with great interest, just like how they teased Xiao Hong and Xiao and I. Xiao Hong and Xiao Ni's cultivation always had some strange ideas, and they always liked to tamper with the cultivation methods. Xiao Lingyu was the same. After he started cultivating again, he also randomly changed his blank soul memory. Miaoling and the other women could be said to have a headache. They had to keep an eye on Xiao Lingyu and his children every day, afraid that they would make mistakes in their cultivation. In fact, they often made mistakes. How could those cultivation methods that had been perfected by countless predecessors be casually tampered with? Especially Xiao Lingyu. Although his memory was cleared, his nature as a chaotic cultivator could not be changed. He still had to cultivate around the power of the chaotic. Unfortunately, his nascent soul was imprisoned. Without the support of his cultivation, he could only cultivate his own realm. The cultivation of the realm was even more dangerous. If he was not careful, his soul would collapse. It took him a whole 3,000 years to cultivate his soul realm to a level comparable to the 9th heaven of longevity with everyone's guidance and his own efforts. During this period, he naturally experienced countless hardships and dangers. Fortunately, his soul strength was extremely high. He could easily digest the insights contained in the life pearls of those demonic beasts. Without his original memory, without the restrictions and cultivation experience of the original 9 revolutions chaos formula, he, who had average comprehension, did not find any brilliant cultivation methods in the past 3,000 years, nor did he create any powerful cultivation routines. He was just like a cultivator with average aptitude, cultivating through his own efforts. If he did not have the essence of a chaotic cultivator, his body and soul would not have had an extremely high foundation. He could not have used a mere 3,000 years to complete the cultivation that others would need hundreds of millions of years to complete. Right now, he had reached a bottleneck, which was the bottleneck to break through to the nirvana realm. It could be said that the current Xiao Lingyu was not the him of the past. He was now an emotionless him who liked to do things step by step. Therefore, when he chose the method to advance to the nirvana realm, he used the method used by ordinary cultivators. However, this advancement required the assistance of skills, so he released the shackles of his nascent soul. All this time, Anya, who was always by his side, constantly reminded him not to release the shackles of his nascent soul easily. However, he, who had lost his memory, only knew that it would be very dangerous. However, he felt that with his current realm, he could barely control his chaotic nascent soul. Therefore, when he meditated alone, he decided to give it a try. Now, to put it bluntly, he had the temperament of a child. Children were often the most curious and had the least patience. After being imprisoned for many years, the chaotic nascent soul was not too excited after being freed. It just floated steadily in his dantian. Then, Xiao Lingyu began the cultivation method used by ordinary cultivators to advance to the nirvana realm. He used his divine thought to gather the yang energy released by the 9 blazing suns in the sky and let it into his dantian. Then, the chaotic nascent soul absorbed and refined it. This refined yang energy would gradually turn into wisps of true fire under the operation of the ordinary cultivation method. After these wisps of true fire accumulated, they would be continuously compressed by the cultivation method and turn into the nirvana flame. With the nirvana flame, and with the nirvana flame to refine one's physical body, one would reach the Bodhi realm. The nirvana flame of ordinary cultivators was mostly of the yang attribute. It was refined by absorbing the energy released by the 9 suns. Only very few cultivators would absorb the energy released by the 9 moons to cultivate their own nirvana flame. According to the most ordinary cultivation method, Shaolin Yu used tens of thousands of years of accumulation to refine a silver flaming orange. This silver flaming orange was the nirvana flame of cultivators in the Bodhi realm. Its power was comparable to Shaolin Yu's original chaotic true fire. However, this silver flaming orange was of the purest yang attribute. It was completely incompatible with Shaolin Yu's body and nascent soul. Chaos is formed by yin and yang. Only by gathering yin and yang can it return to chaos. Shaolin Yu understood this simple principle. Bold and curious, he began to absorb the energy released by the 9 moons to condense the yin attribute nirvana flame. The speed of condensing the yin attribute nirvana flame was extremely slow. This might be one of the reasons why no one was willing to choose it. Shaolin Yu used hundreds of thousands of years to condense a nirvana flame that was also silver but had a cold aura. During this period, Anya also came to take a look countless times. However, when she saw that there was no danger, she did not stop him. It was worth mentioning that Anya, Yueru, Jiang Lanchang, and Jiang Lanhua successively gave birth to 4 more children for Shaolin Yu. There were 2 sons and 2 daughters. Everyone's attention inevitably shifted to the 4 newly born children. These 4 children were also born at the 2nd heaven of longevity. Shaolin Yu named them Shao Ji, Shao Xiang, Shao Ru, and Shao Yi. Ji Xiang was a boy, and Rui was a girl. It sounded appropriate. As he did not have any memories, Shaolin Yu only wanted to cultivate now. He did not care much about his children or his wife. Everyone could understand. Chapter 8:12. Boom! The time it took to finish a cup of tea passed, and the 3 balls of flames exploded before they could fuse, filling his dantian with countless sparks. Fortunately, the space within his dantian was incomparably large and contained a vast starfield. Otherwise, it would have been difficult to withstand the powerful impact of the 3 balls of flames exploding at the same time. The space within his dantian managed to withstand it, but his chaos nascent soul didn't last more than 2 breaths of time before it collapsed and exploded as well. The explosion of a single drop of chaos origin power could form a vast starfield, and there was no telling how much chaos origin power was contained within the nascent soul. If it had exploded and unleashed its full power, it might have been able to flatten Gourd Island, not to mention Shaolin Yu's body. However, just as Shaolin Yu realized that things weren't looking good, he discovered that the flames that had dispersed first were actually absorbing the chaos origin power frantically. As the chaos origin power rapidly swept in all directions, its might was continuously being absorbed and weakened by the flames. As such, the impact from the explosion of the nascent soul had been reduced to the lowest possible level before it could even reach the space within his dantian. All of the chaos origin power that had exploded was absorbed by the sparks, and the flames that were originally the size of beans burned even more vigorously at this moment. Shaolin Yu could clearly sense that the flames and chaos origin power were fusing together, and the latter was rapidly being consumed. Although the chaos origin power didn't have a cultivation art to coordinate with it after the explosion, its innate nature caused it to automatically draw the flames that were burning it and slowly gather them together. When the chaos origin power absorbed by the flames was completely burned away, the flames would stop and gradually dim, as if they were about to be extinguished. Shaolin Yu began to mobilize the chaos origin power in his body and pour it into his dantian. He felt that he couldn't let the flames extinguish, or he would be done for. There wasn't much chaos origin power in his body, but there were countless blood crystals that contained chaos origin power and life essence in his bones and blood vessels. He kept detonating those blood crystals and pouring the chaos origin power and life essence into his dantian. Chaos origin power could be ignited and gathered on its own, and so could life essence. After all, Shaolin Yu still had some experience in cultivation. He also used the most common nascent soul condensing technique, which was quite useful. It sped up the formation of the chaotic nascent soul. In the end, the new chaotic divine infant was successfully formed. It might not be as miraculous as before, but its entire body shone with silver-white flames, and it was at least 10 times smaller than before. Moreover, although he looked much smaller and his strength was not as dense as before, the quality of the chaos origin force within him seemed to have increased by quite a bit. This was nothing. The most important thing was that the flames all over his body looked very similar to Yunhai's Nirvana flame, but its power was definitely more than 100 times stronger. According to the cultivation method of ordinary cultivators, Shaolin Yu knew that she had completed the most crucial step, which was to form her own primal chaos nirvana true flame. She could be considered to have successfully broken through to the primal chaos nirvana stage. The following cultivation was still the same as an ordinary cultivator, using the chaotic nirvana true flame to temper his body. I think you can return the copied memories to me now. When Anya came again, Shaolin Yu said to her. You've broken through? Anya asked in surprise. I think so. As for the specifics, I'll have to recover my memories first to be sure. Shaolin Yu nodded. Anya did not dawdle. She immediately handed a jade slip to Shaolin Yu. Shaolin Yu, on the other hand, began to read the contents of the jade slip carefully and seriously. Although it was a copy, because Anya's cultivation level was too low, Shaolin Yu would definitely lose a lot of memories. However, the parts that were lost were all related to the comprehension of cultivation level. His memories of people and things would not be lost. Just as Anya said before, Shaolin Yu's cultivation level had dropped a lot. However, his cultivation in the soul realm could be rapidly improved by constantly absorbing the life pearls of Nirvana stage demon beasts, so the impact of this drop was not very big. With the previous memories, Shaolin Yu could not help but sigh. So this is what it means to break through and reach Nirvana. It means to let the primal chaos true flame break through and then establish. However, if it was in the past, even if I knew this, I would definitely not dare to try it. I was too cautious in the past. Every time I broke through, I had to prepare all the materials and raise the success rate to the maximum before trying to break through. It has become a habit of mine. Breaking through and reaching Nirvana is actually very simple. It's just that I thought too much in the past. In this way, clearing my memories to cultivate was indeed the right choice. The ignorant are the most fearless. Next, Shaolin Yu used yang crystals to purchase some life pearls of body and Nirvana heart stage demon beasts in the city. He absorbed the comprehension of their realms and raised his soul realm to the level of Nirvana heart stage. I should be at the early stage of primal chaos Nirvana stage right now. However, if I use the primal chaos true flame to temper my body, my strength will definitely not be weaker than Nirvana soul stage experts. If I use the formless giant demon art, even nascent soul stage experts will not be my match. If I am at the mid-stage of primal chaos Nirvana stage, I should not be afraid of true Nirvana stage experts. As for the late stage of primal chaos Nirvana stage, I will definitely be an invincible existence under the star realm. At the peak of the late stage, I should be able to fight against ordinary star realm experts. Shaolin Yu first sorted out his gains over the years and then speculated on the strength of primal chaos Nirvana stage experts. Primal chaos true flame and primal chaos origin power of a higher quality were things that other Nirvana stage cultivators did not have. It was also Shaolin Yu's powerful capital. The increase in his cultivation level and strength would also make the lethality of his Heaven's Eye of Destruction stronger. Now that hundreds of thousands of years have passed, why hasn't the howling celestial dog returned? It seems like things didn't go well. After Shaolin Yu thought of the howling celestial dog, he naturally thought of the Xian Yuan sword. With a thought, the Xian Yuan sword appeared in his hand. The huge increase in his strength made this simple sword seem less heavy. However, he still had not completed the tempering of his body, so he was still unable to wield it freely. Forcefully wielding it would greatly increase the speed of his energy consumption. What is this sword made of? It's so heavy. Xiaolingyu was very curious. Even the demon sealing tower made of primal chaos black iron was not as heavy as the Xianyuan sword. Ordinary cultivators used the Nirvana true flame to temper their bodies and complete the process of body puppet cultivation. The progress was very slow. After all, they did not dare to use the Nirvana true flame to burn their bodies with all their might. Xiaolingyu was different. He had tried to burn his body with powerful flames many times. Although it was extremely painful, his progress was fast. However, the power of the primal chaos true flame was too strong. He had to prepare some high-quality materials and elixirs to support it. He did not lack yang crystals, so it would not be too difficult to buy materials. As for elixirs, he could also buy them, but the price might be extremely expensive. Now that he had 7 wives and 6 children, this large family was very ambitious and unwilling to be mediocre. The consumption of their cultivation was very astonishing. Xiaolingyu could not sit still and eat. One more thing worth mentioning was that with the help of the star pole magnet, Myling had also advanced to the body puppet realm. From the 8th celestial stage of longevity to the body puppet realm, it only took a few 100,000 years. Myling's speed was very fast. The cultivation of the Nirvana realm consumed a lot of resources. If one wanted to improve quickly, it would be impossible without the support of a rich family. To Myling, as long as he had enough resources, he would be able to cultivate to the extreme celestial stage at the fastest speed. He did not go to the Awakening God Tower anymore. The manager, Master Yu, also came a few times. He only came to visit like a friend and did not let Xiaolingyu and Myling take turns to be on duty. Anyway, there were many awakening gods in the Awakening God Tower. It did not matter if there were 2 less. After a few 100,000 years of recuperation, Master Yu's injuries were completely healed. Moreover, he seemed to be in high spirits and often had a smile on his face. In the Gourd City, Xiaolingyu did not find the materials and elixirs he needed, so he decided to go to the Floating Cloud City again. This time, he did not ask Myling to go with him, nor did he bring Ling Er. Instead, he went alone. Although it had been a long time since he worked in the Awakening God Tower, Master Yu still opened the door for Xiaolingyu and used the teleportation array on the 3rd floor to send him there. After the teleportation ended, Xiaolingyu flew at a moderate speed for a day and entered the Floating Cloud City. The materials and elixirs that Xiaolingyu wanted to buy were the kind that could help him maintain his body when the primal Nirvana true fire was tempering his body. These kinds of materials and elixirs could only be found in the big cities, and there were not many of them. He first went to the Danxiang Peak and went through dozens of shops before he found the elixir he needed. This elixir was called the Indestructible Golden Elixir. From the name, one could guess how powerful it was. The shopkeeper's price was also very shocking. 1 indestructible golden elixir cost 23 million yang crystals, and after a rough estimate, Xiaolingyu needed at least 5 indestructible golden elixirs to satisfy his needs. 5 indestructible golden elixirs were worth more than 100 million yang crystals. Xiaolingyu's scalp tingled. It was actually a waste to use the indestructible golden body elixir to protect the body when tempering it. This elixir was mainly used to preserve the body when a cultivator was in great danger. It had the effect of saving lives, which was why it was so valuable. This was only one of the elixirs and materials that Xiaolingyu needed, and it already cost so many yang crystals. If he collected all the materials, even if Xiaolingyu went bankrupt, he would not be able to complete it. Therefore, Xiaolingyu thought of selling those prescriptions. After he walked around the Danxiang Peak a few times, he found the shop that bought prescriptions. When the shopkeeper saw him, he smiled brightly. "You're tuning into the Mythic Realms YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories."